Hello, everybody, and welcome to the fourth round of the DWR Endurance Championship, and welcome along to Circuit Spa-Francorchamps, a circuit that doesn't just host races, it defines them. Round 4 of 6 here marks the point where championships stop being about potential and start being about reality. With only a handful of races remaining, Spa arrives at exactly the wrong time for anyone hoping to ease into the second half of the season. This circuit is built on commitment and consequence, from the plunge through Eau Rouge and Raidillon to the long, punishing lap that follows. Spa demands confidence at high speed and absolute trust in the car beneath you. Hesitation costs time everywhere, and mistakes here are rarely small ones. Overtakes are possible, but never free. The Camel Straight invites bravery, Lacombe punishes late braking, and a bus stop waits at the end of the lap to catch out the impatient. Drivers will need rhythm through Pouhon, precision through Bruxelles, and focus on every sector because Spa gives nothing back. And then there's the wild card, the weather in the Ardennes. Conditions can change corner by corner and lap by lap. A dry line can disappear in seconds, strategies can unravel, and races can swing without warning. At this stage of the championship, adaptability may matter just as much as outright speed. Round 4 of 6 is where momentum either locks in or slips away. Spa-Francorchamps doesn't care who you are or where you sit in the standings. It simply asks you one question. How committed are you? And alongside me, as always, is Zach. Zach, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Lewis?
I am doing grand, and I am certainly looking forward to a great evening of racing out here in the Ardennes Forest. You can see we've got, with 2 minutes left to go of practice, got just over, in fact, exactly 20 cars in the mix. And if we have a little look at the circuit that takes our drivers today, all I've got to do is find the right button for it. There we go. We're looking at a 7-kilometer circuit, 21 turns, and a pretty low track temp right now of 25 degrees Celsius. There's a bit of a wind coming across the circuit, heading down to the south. And importantly, it looks like there is a very high chance of rain between the end of this practice session and the start of the race. Zach, I think it's going to be very spicy indeed.
I think we got a great race ahead. The rain, and I think a little bit of the humidity is going to make a big difference for a lot of these drivers. And on this nice long track, you have a lot of opportunity and a lot of probability that there's going to be a couple incidents that are going to go down.
Absolutely, and you might be able to spot there are a few puddles remaining in certain areas of the track, quite limited at the moment, as there was some rain before the practice session, but it has been completely dry thus far. I don't think that's going to hold, and there is certainly a chance of rain between qualifying and the race, and in fact it might start raining during qualifying. That means that first lap is going to be crucially important. You're going to have to choose dry tyres, wet tyres, maybe go out for a dry lap and it doesn't work and you've cost yourself so much time as the rain falls and the track gets slower. I think we could be looking at a very mixed up grid. It may well be the first person to put in a lap ends up with the fastest lap time. That might be an AM driver, that might be a Pro-Am driver, and we could see our pros all the way at the back if they time the qualifying wrong.
I think it's going to be really important, especially with the way the rain's looking. Just get out there as quick as you can, get as fast a lap put down, and then maybe see if you can hold it to get something close. But I think you're definitely right. That first outing is going to be huge for these drivers.
Absolutely. And you've got to think a little bit into the race as well. There's going to be quite a difference in setup choice between if you want to go for a mostly dry qualifying on dry tyres and prepare for the start of the race, that we expect the track to be wet. We just don't know exactly how wet. So how much do you compromise that setup, put a bit of extra wing on at the start of the race in comparison to wanting a nice quick qualifying time? You could be going into the race not knowing and not having driven that particular setup before. It's going to make it all the more interesting as the checkered flag is out. We're about to find out whether rain does indeed start in that qualifying session. We wait for the final cars to be towed back into the pit lane before we begin. And in qualifying, so far, the track is looking dry. We see first driver there. Everyone, I think, might be rushing out the pit lane as quickly as they possibly can. Looks like everyone coming out the pit lane. Zach, you have a little look at the weather radar. Is there any chance of rain to spoil this session for any of our drivers?
It looks like we got a little bit of rain heading into the track right now. We've got an 80% chance coming in over the next 15 minutes. So we'll see if that's going to be enough. That rain might hit a little bit before or right as that qualifying ends.
Well, that is certainly going to be interesting. We were all waiting for the rain last time out in Silverstone, and it did come with about 20 minutes to go, but it never rained enough to put anybody onto wet tyres and to be kind of worth it for anyone. As we hear there, the track is actually getting warmer right now, 28 degrees Celsius, but I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to heat up for, and I'm still pretty convinced that the safest option is going to be to keep the first lap as your main lap in this session, because I think you don't want to risk making a mistake on it and ending up with a lap while the rain is forming. As everyone's kind of heading out on their laps, let's have a little look at the championship standings here. Bring them up on the screen. We can see that in the pro class, it's David who still leads the way, but only 10 points in front of Robin Wist in second, and 33 points ahead of Mikey Stewart, who currently sits in third place in that pro class. Following along, it's Joe Harrison, Stephen Norrie, who will take no further part in this championship, followed by Thomas Critchell, who isn't here today, James Peace, Corey Price, Michael G, and Matt, who's also not taking any further part in this championship as far as I understand. So it's going to get spicy at the top as the pro class places, I think, might collapse in on themselves quite quickly indeed. Having a little look, if we can't, at the Pro-Am standings, it is Timo Gartner who leads the way on 90 points, a lovely round number for him, and Samuel Garrett on 66, 24 behind. Jeffrey Damon on 55, very closely followed by Costa on 54. Ian Kennigan pretty close behind with Felix Mexner as well, 44 and 42 points respectively. Phil Bauer sits on 30 and Carsten Walter on 22. Sebastian and Jensen are both tied on 19th points for a joint 9th and 10th spot right now. And then it is the 999 car of Richard, who sits at the back with 15 so far and 75 off of the main competitors. Sven is on 13 and I think our last place currently also on 13 is Alexander Drake. We will have a little look at what's happening with those standings and why we only have one per page right now, as hopefully we can see the battle in the AM class. And it's Michael Rhodes who has the biggest lead of anyone in any class right now. 98 points, almost a perfect run for the season. And is 35 points in front of Andy Keane. But there's a spicy battle there between Keane and JT, as they are only separated by 2 points on 63 and 61 respectively. Stefan Heinrich is on 41, and then another spicy fight in the championship as Richard Neves, James Vernon are very close together, 26 and 25, and then Garcia on 15 with our other drivers yet to score. There's all the chance in the world for those standings to completely change in this race, especially if the rain does indeed come. And having a look at our lap times right now, David in the 513 in pro class is looking pretty quick. He has set the fastest Sector 2 of anyone. Jeffrey Damon looking pretty fast in the Pro-Am class. He sets the fastest Sector 2 out of anyone. And JT Sawyer in the Am class also having a fast time, as we're seeing the first drivers cross the line now. It is Robin Wist right now who has taken the lead in the Pro class and overall. Let's have a little look at those overall standings. It's looking pretty, not messed up, jumbled up right now, as we've got Joe Harrison, who has taken the lead, and now Robin Wist in P2, and then there is a glut of Pro-Am class drivers before we get down to the next Pro driver in Mikey Stewart. I can't see any rain out there. Maybe people are doing a couple of prep laps in order to get their tyres up to temperature, but it's certainly looking interesting at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're right. I was a little bit more surprised to see a lot of our Pro-Am drivers doing well, but as we've seen through the season, some of those drivers have been able to sneak up through that Pro field and start to prove themselves as the season's gone on.
Absolutely, and I'm thinking that as we look forward to the final rounds of this championship, especially as we, as you know, some drivers are developing a bit, and certain tracks are going to be suiting certain drivers, certain cars as well. I think we are going to look at some of those Pro-Am drivers pushing it up against the Pro drivers, and similarly with the Am drivers getting involved with the Pro-Am field. I think it's certainly going to mix up some of the racing, definitely strategic decisions behind who you want to keep behind you, battle hard, even if they're not in the same class as you, and who you're just going to let through, because it's no longer a clear-cut thing where the Pro drivers are going to be the absolute fastest out there. And wow, JT Sawyer there, who's just coming around the final sector, currently sits P10 overall in front of Peace, who I think might have had a second warm-up lap, but he's not doing too badly for himself, as we're seeing quite a few improvements. And there is the familiar face of David Schilling, who takes P1 by half a second in the Pro class. But I think quite a few of those Pro drivers behind him will be looking for improvements as the session goes on. Alexander Drake, P4 overall, in front of Joe Harrison, but only temporarily. But I think he'll be pretty happy with a P5 as it stands, and half a second faster than his nearest championship rival in the Pro-Am class of Felix Mexner. And this is certainly looking like a mixed-up grid. I can see that Drake has gone back to the pits. I wonder if he thinks rain's about to hit, and he's decided that he would underfuel his car because he didn't want to be carrying too much. Let's have a little look who's out there on a good lap right now. Samuel Garrett looks like he's improving in the middle sector. Michael Rhodes improves to displace JT Sawyer as the Am class leader. Is JT on another lap? Yes, he is. He's set a personal best for Sector 1, and he's not massively separated from Michael Rhodes. He's only just under 2 tenths behind. That's going to be an interesting battle, as Alexander Drake has gone out on another outlap, so I'm assuming he went for an out 2 pushes and is going to try the same again, hoping that the rain doesn't hit in the middle of this particular session. Mikey Stewart is looking like he's improving. Currently a second down on the overall lead and the lead of the Pro class. Let's see if he can move himself up, maybe past Joe Harrison, and see if he can't improve. Let's have a little look. He hasn't set a personal best for the second sector. 51.0, pretty much bang on. Let's see what he can do in the final part of this lap. James Peace is going to be hoping he can improve in that final sector, because so far he is 15th overall being in that Pro class. That won't be proving him very well. And Timo Gartner, maybe biggest surprise at the start of this season, has passed Mikey Stewart and has gone right up there into pole position in the AM class. Let's see if Stewart can improve and overtake him. At the moment, he can't. It's going to be Timo Gartner 4th overall, and Mikey Stewart has decided he's going to the pit lane. Have a little look. JT Sawyer has set the best middle sector of his class. Let's see what happens as he comes across the line. Does he improve on Michael Rhodes? Yes, he does, by 0.5 of a second over his rival in the championship. They've towed back to the pit lane. Who else is left back on track? It is Michael Rhodes, as we just mentioned, probably the fastest driver who's improving right now. Set a personal best for the first sector. Middle sector. Is he going to be able to pull anything off special as we come round this bus stop to maybe take that pole position in his class back? As he comes up to the line now, what are we going to see? An improvement, but it is not enough to displace JT at the front of that AM field. And looking at everybody else's lap times, it doesn't look like there's any significant improvements happening throughout the grid right now. In fact, I think Michael Rhodes is cruising there, and I think he might be able to hit in the pit lane, or maybe he is going on a cool down lap. He doesn't look like he's pushing it extremely hard there. Might be cooling down his tyres, or maybe heading to the pit lane. This is
going to be one of those interesting tracks too, right? Because we have with this one, it's much more popular track with the amount of special events we have. So the I rating for some of these drivers really isn't going to show the speed and the amount of time they've actually spent on this track running those laps and learning those lines.
Absolutely, a very good point. And seeing Walter there in the Pro-Am class improving, and Carter as well, as Oster heads up to P4 overall and P1 in that Pro-Am class, displacing Timo Gartner by just over 0.2 of a second. That is very interesting indeed, and it looks like Timo Gartner is very close to Drake, but they are all in the pit lane, and Timo is still hoping for some improvement with 3 minutes to go. And having a little check on what's happening down in the pit lane from Alex Pilbeam, he says that rain shower is about 10 minutes out and it's on its way in. That was a little bit ago, so I think if we are going to see rain at the end of this qualifying session, it is going to be a few drops in the final minute or so. So I don't think it will be affecting people's lap times too much. Hyrex hasn't set a time yet in the AM class. He's currently set his best middle sector overall. Let's see what he can do as we come up to the bus stop. Is he going to be able to move himself out of currently last overall and move himself up the pit, the grid a little bit as he comes across the line? Is it going to be a valid lap time? I don't think it is. I think oh no, he did get a valid lap time and goes up to P3 in the AM class, and it looks like he might be parking it and calling it a day because he doesn't have enough time to go around and do another lap. Who's still running out there? Vernon's gone into the pits. Timo Gartner's still running and looking for that pole position in the Pro-Am class. And let's see what he can do. He's set a personal best for the middle sector. A so-so first sector. No improvement over his personal best. Walter has improved also in the middle sector, but he is currently 2.5 seconds behind a potential pro. So I think a potential pole, excuse me, and I think he will have to try quite hard indeed to get himself up to that front three, who are looking very close indeed. Let's see what happens when Timo Gartner crosses the line. It's a 2:17.4, but it does not improve to set him up to that Pro-Am pole. Let's have a look now at Carter, who comes across the line, improves on their lap time, but doesn't set anything in order to push himself up the table in that Red Bull livery car. And that is everybody back in the pit lane, and that is how our grid is going to start. And well, it's going to be interesting as we hear that some spicy conditions and spicy tyre choices might be coming in for the start of this race. Zach, do you have anything on the radar?
The colors of the rain are starting to hit the zoomed in track map at this point. So it's looking like between 11:15 and 11:30, we're definitely going to get some rain across the track. We'll see if it is enough to stick around and keep that track wet for the race, or if it'll dry up before the end. But I think we've definitely got a spicy beginning on our hands.
Of course, we all knew in Silverstone that the track got a bit damp, but not wet enough for wets. Will some people go for dries? Will some people go for wets? Well, we're about to find out in a couple of seconds' time as we head into the race. And I can just see it now with 2 seconds left of qualifying. I just saw a bit of rain go over the camera lens there. So the rain is definitely here. It's just a question of how much is there going to be. And checkered flag is out. Not that anybody was out on any laps right now. And just loading in there, I can see that track is a lot darker than when we last saw it in qualifying. It doesn't look massively wet as we have a look at the starting grid. It's David Schilling who starts on pole and Robin Wist right behind him in P2. Then it's going to be Joe Harrison in P3. And then P1 for our Pro-Am class. A great job by Costa to be P4 overall. Pro-Am continues with Timo Gartner, who's in front of Stewart in the Pro class in P6. Then in P7, it's P3 for our Pro-Am, and Alexander Drake and Jeffrey Damon lines up behind him in that Mercedes. Felix Mexner and Samuel Garrett are next to take up the final spaces inside the top 10. They're going to be hoping to move forwards a little bit in that Pro-Am class. Followed by the 699 car and the 12 car, continuing our list of Pro-Am drivers. Breaking in now to the top 13, it's JT Sawyer with Michael Rhodes right behind. They are going to be having some interesting battles over this race. JT Sawyer chasing down Rhodes for the lead. And disappointing qualifying for Peace. He starts P15 overall and last of the Pro drivers, and has Walter, a new driver to the series, in P16 behind him. Heinrichs and Carter make up P17 and P18 on our grid as we take a look at the final row, who is going to be consumed by Garcia and Vernon, who in P20. Will their fortunes change? Who is going to look for some wet tyres at the beginning of this race, or is it just not wet enough? What do you think, Zach?
I think it's going to be a very interesting start. The track is a little bit wet between the qualifying and the start of the race. We did see that little brush of rain pass over and get that track a little wetter than I think the drivers would like to see. But from what I can see on the radar, it doesn't look like we have anything else coming up. So I think it's going to be a lot about managing the beginning of this race. If you started out with dries, taking it really easy, letting it get nice and sticky. If you started on wets, you know, maybe you short fueled to get through the first lap so you can get in, get a dry tire change, fill back up, and get out there when you got some more grip on the wheels.
Yeah, that's interesting indeed. I can see a few puddles have built up, especially around the curbing. Heard some drivers complaining about turn 7, particularly having a bad puddle after it rained before practice. I'm seeing a little bit of spray coming out the back of David's car here. However, I'm not seeing, you know, massive plumes. I'm not expecting it to stay wet for too long in this session, and I think if anyone is on wet, they will definitely short fuel and want to end up getting rid of those wets as quickly as they possibly can. Looks like the front two have decided that they're going to go one by one through this section. Of course, they've had no practice on this track in the wet specifically, as the conditions stand right now. So it is going to be a new adventure for them as we look at that round of cars coming round the second to last corner before the bus stop. The safety car is going to peel off, and we're going to see just how wet that track is and how many people are going to make mistakes. I'm seeing quite a few dry tyres. I think David might be on wets. I'm not completely sure, but he's definitely got different tyres on than the P2 man in Robin Wist, and he's decided that the race is about to start now. As the overlays crash on our race start, we will work about getting them back in just a short moment, but for now, let's have a look at this action as David takes P1 in turn 1, and it looks like Joe Harrison up the inside there, and he's going to take P1 overall in a massive turn of events as we head through turn 1 there. And David is in P2 with, I think, a dry tie runner of Robin Wist in P3. Are they all going to make it through Eau Rouge without issue? No, we've got a few cars cutting the track there. David is one of them. They're surely going to get a slowdown, and they're having to pull off the racing line and drop time, and drop even more time through the beginning phases of this race. There's a bit of chaos happening in the background. Looks like Michael Rhodes has dropped back by quite a long way at the start of that race, and another car far in the background. As far as I can see, we might have had one car in the wall, and look at that. David surely has to be on dry tyres as he cuts, and there's a spinner in the background of car 11, and it's all happening as we head further back in the pack. Oh, and a spinner. I think that might be Timo Gardner there. I think he might have caught the curb wrong and get tagged by a car. I think there's a real mix of confidence and tyres happening here. And it looks to me like those who chose wets are absolutely flying away.
Yep, it's looking like those dry tires might have been a little bit of a bad choice. Those curbs being a little bit wet, it's enough to catch those drivers off and, make it a really, really rough race for them to get started with. Looks like the drivers that took those wet tires got a lot of grip and were able to get some speed.
Absolutely, and it's David. He's round in the wall, and he manages to hit the wall, and he's reversing back towards the track, luckily keeping it off the racing line. And we've got our overlays back and working again, and he is not going to be very happy at all, as I won't believe some of those pit times as we're waiting for everyone to cross a timing line before we get our overlays completely back and running. But there's definitely a meatball out there, and that's a very damaged vehicle and an even more damaged vehicle further back as well. And what a disaster this has been for David, who isn't in P1 in that pro class anymore, not even P1 overall, as we wait for the standings to update as they cross the start finish line. But that has been a disaster.
It'll be very interesting too. It looks like Alex Drake was maybe not able to get out onto the track at the start as he fell back a bit. But I'm also kind of wondering if maybe that was a accident from the iRacing gods, as he seems to have avoided a lot of that lap 1 carnage.
Absolutely, and I'm seeing quite a few cars into the pits. James Peace is out of the race, disconnected. Garcia in the pits, Walter in the pits, and Altman in the pits, and looks like Timo Gartner going into the pits in the background. There, of course, Altman, who has that meatball flag, as you can see on the standings. Quite a few drivers in the pit lane. It has not gone well for them at the start, and I think that we are going to have quite a few incidents to have a look at, and we're seeing Costa here with quite a bit of damage, and some drivers in the background who are absolutely forgetting that Eau Rouge exists, going straight across it. And I think this real mix of whether you choose dry or wet tyres, looking at that start, I think I would have wanted to be on wets, just looking at the amount of damage on all of those cars.
I think you're right. I mean, when you're thinking about the amount of speed that you carry through a lot of portions of this track, if you're on a set of dry tires going through these wet areas, your car ends up hydroplaning quite a bit. And I think especially up Eau Rouge, we saw that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been seeing a lot of cars who weren't expecting Eau Rouge to be quite as wet as it was, and then they end up having to cut the track, and that kind of upsets the run of anyone behind, and you do really end up with kind of a concertina effect of everyone getting involved in every possible incident at the beginning of the race. Have a little look at the overall standings, and you can see that start has really caused a real mix-up. Joe Harrison, who we can see, who has a 3-second lead over the next car, but that car is Felix Mexner, who is in the Pro-Am class ahead of Stewart. And then you're looking at more Pro-Am drivers, an Am driver in Heinrichs, and then Robin Wist, all the way back, now down in P8, just been passed by Michael Rhodes and James Vernon. I think he might have damage on his vehicle as there's a spinner there, and I think that might have been Robin Wiss, who has really had a horrible start to this race. And he gets passed by David, who we saw having that spin and having to recover. The pro class here have not been enjoying these conditions.
I mean, I know, can speak from experience. I know driving that Mercedes in the wet can be quite a handful, and he looks like he chose to come out onto dry tires at the start. So a car that is already pretty hard to handle and you put it on dries in a wet area, it's going to be a tough one.
You can just see him struggling around that final turn on those dry tires, and it looks like he has the 699 behind him. Is he going to peel into the pit lane? He is, and I can only imagine that that is going to be a swap for wet tyres for him. David, I think, was on wet tyres, but still had that spin at the beginning of the race. And well, now it is Stewart who is hunting down Felix Mexner on the Kemmel Straight. And as we've got up to speed, you can see the increase in spray behind all of these cars. And that wasn't completely obvious, especially if you're sitting on the grid going nowhere, of what tyre you should choose. But just look at some of those puddles on the inside of those curbs. They look absolutely deadly on wet tyres or dries. As
I mean, it's definitely going to be tough to take those racing lines right now. A dry line is starting to form in some parts of the track. For the most part, it's still looking pretty dark to me.
Of course, we also had 3 hours just under of practice on this track, and that means that you know, the track's rubbered up. We had everyone out during qualifying, so it's going to be pretty greasy with just that light sprinkling of rain. It's not really formed much standing water to kind of push all of the marbles and stuff off the track. Just going to create a greasy surface, and you can see cars actively avoiding the puddles on the inside there because they don't want to catch a puddle and end up in a spin like they've seen so many of their other drivers. And Jeffrey Damon there is actually gaining on the back of Stewart here, and this is really going to be a mix-up for the championship, especially if you're in that AM class. Our top 3 AM drivers right now are, well, they're in 5th, 6th and 7th, and we've got some pro drivers much further back, and you're going to be in a real pack of drivers kind of all the way down. You can see David Schilling is only just in front of JT Sawyer in 10th place. There is a real mix going on here as we round the final corner in the bus stop, and Jeffrey Damon there really has caught up to the back of this pack of 3 cars in that Mercedes. He doesn't appear to be having any struggles right now. I can't see what tyres he might be on. I'm assuming it's wets, seeing as he's not spinning out everywhere in quite a tricky car in the wet. And yeah, they are taking off as a little bit of a pack, quite separated from Joe Harrison now. 6 seconds is the gap to the overall league, but they are forming a little pack of themselves. But I am going to be interested, once this race calms down a little bit, to have a look at some of those first lap incidents and see what happened with everyone. I'm looking at my incident display here, and I think I have about 10 incidents that are being defined as a crash. As we look in the background, it's Michael Rhodes competing for the lead of that AM class and P5 overall. He's a proficient driver in the wet, is Michael Rhodes, knows where all the lines are, and he's going to go round the outside of Heinrich and take that place beautifully as we head down further in the track. And I can see that David Schilling has come into the pit lane, presumably for a bit of a repair and probably a change to the wet compound tyres as well.
It's kind of interesting because at this point in the race, you know, we're just about 10 minutes in, the track state has switched over to a very light wet. So it seems like those drivers that started out on dries made a really tough decision, because in the end, you kind of lose and you lose.
Absolutely. Now you really do face the pain, and depending on how long his pit stop is, he might end up a lap down on Joe Harrison. Now we saw him come back in Silverstone. But I think that that will be quite the gap. And actually, you can see the rear end of that Porsche just kind of walking around a little bit for Michael Rhodes' card. I am wondering a little bit whether we're going to start approaching the time where the wets get a bit too hot, but it is surely too wet for dries. And let's have a little look here. David is still in the pit lane, and not sure whether he's going to come back out onto the track, but Joe Harrison is about to lap him as the leader of this race. He goes a lap down, and I don't think he'll be gaining that entire lap back during the course of this race.
Bit of a spicy shakeup for that first 10 minutes of the race. Definitely not what I expected.
Absolutely. And we've still got this little pack of 3 cars here in Felix Mexner, Mikey Stewart and Jeffrey Damon. They're P2, 3 and 4 overall. But Felix Mexner in the 17 car leads the Pro-Am class, and Jeffrey Damon P2 in that class. We have a little look of what implications this might have on the championship. Well, David Schilling has got out of his car and decided he wants no further part in this race. He joins James Peace in being out in that pro class, and Robin Wist 63 seconds off the lead. So it's down to Stewart if any challenge comes for that pro lead at all. Having a look at the Pro-Am class, as we said, Felix Mexner and Jeffrey Damon pretty close together here. Then 10 seconds back to Felix Costa, and some pretty stable gaps, all around 10 seconds or so as we go back in that field. The Am class, Michael Rhodes currently leading by 1.6 seconds. Vernon is 6 seconds back, and then a massive gap of 21 seconds back to JT Sawyer. But of course, there is still very much drama to come in this race, both in terms of racing action, as you can see on your screens, but also in terms of who decides to jump first onto those dry compound tyres. Stefan looking pretty good in P6. I'm hearing from Alex Pilbeam, if he's on dry tyres, he could very much take the overall lead. If he is on dry tyres, he's done amazingly well. Talking of dry tyres, let us have a little look back to the start of this race and come back to this battle in a little bit. First person I'm seeing is Sebastian in the 699 car, having a crash. Must have been at the very start of the race. Have a little look here, and let's see what happened to him. There's so many incidents that I'm not so sure exactly which one I should be looking at. Oh, there's a horrible puddle in the middle there, and I can see some cars going off track to avoid, and whoa, there was a lot of cars off track there. I want to have a look at that one. Looks like Michael Rhodes involved in that incident up Eau Rouge. That's not Michael Rhodes. This is Michael Rhodes and JT Sawyer right behind him. They all look like they went off the track as they saw what was happening and they didn't know which way to go, and I think they were all incredibly lucky to not get caught by that Porsche that just got launched back into the racetrack. Well, not normally the racetrack, but where everyone was racing. And that's how Michael Rhodes ended up towards the back of the field. It'll be interesting to see the stewards' opinions when we have a look back at that later and who lost out in that particular incident. Let's have a little look at what happened at the start for Samuel Garrett here. All by himself. I have a feeling we might see a repeat of what happened before, and absolutely we did. Horrible part of racetrack in Eau Rouge. He bonks the wall, but doesn't look like there's a massive amount of lasting damage there. And we mentioned it at the time, but let's have a little look. Timo Gartner went for a little bit of a spin in the background at the beginning. What happened to him? He just went a bit too much on the loud pedal on dry tyres and just had nowhere to go. Oh, and that is not what you want there. I think that might have been Sven, who just went into the side of his spun car in the number 12. You can see him in the front of your picture there. Black car. He's going to avoid, but he just doesn't know where Timo is. And by the time he gets there, I think it's just a bit too late for him.
Yeah, but I think you can definitely see him up on the bumper of the car in front, and you're coming up over a little bit of a hill there, so it could definitely be that situation where he's coming out of the corner, he's got a bit of a run, he thinks he can go to the side, and all of a sudden you got a car that you're staring at.
Yeah,
not a fun situation.
I want to have a little look. Of course, you're a bit unsighted because it's dry, and yeah, you pulled out, and he's trying to get back in, but I think he might have been on dry tyres as well, and getting back in is kind of easier said than done at that point when you're on the wrong tyres for the conditions.
A lot of this track can be hard enough to handle with a dry track, much less when it's wet and you're on dries. It kind of makes it impossible to get that car to turn any sort of direction that you want it to.
Oh, what happened to Walter there? He already had damage to the front of his Porsche, and he's just kind of spinning on the curb with the 33 car behind him. Oh, and then he tags the number 12. That is, I think the stewards might be looking at that particular rejoin because cars weren't going particularly fast through that section, but he was 3 wide, and 3 wide through there doesn't often work. Let's have a look. I want to actually have a look at Walter here, but there's so many incidents coming in. It's hard, and he's just kind of 3 wide there, and then JT gives him a bit of a love tap as he tries to get out of the corner. And everyone's going past Matthew Carter there. I think the stewards will want to have a look at that rejoin because he just drove himself into the side of a car as he was rejoining the track, I think. Oh, and then we can see here David Schilling having his incident off the road that we'll have a proper look at from the chopper cam now. On those dry tyres, just no grip there whatsoever, and actually hits more of the front of his car, and he keeps reversing. At this point, as a driver, I think you've got to be pretty worried he's going to reverse back onto the racing line, but he has more smarts than that as he rejoins the racetrack. Samuel Garrett also involved in what I think might unfortunately be another spin of being on dry tyres. And yeah, you can just see there is absolutely no grip on those dry compound tyres at all. And I have a horrible feeling I'm about to watch the same incident again. I am. Loads of people coming into the pits. And yeah, just a spin through that last corner. Felix Mexner. Now, what happened to him? I think everyone on those dry tyres, the car just pendulums on them, and there's not really much they can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, in these situations, you gotta be just about perfect on that brake and throttle. You give it a little too much or a little bit too little, and you're gonna lose complete control of that thing, and you're just along for the ride.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at what happened. I'll actually have a look a bit earlier on to Robin Wist here. I think on those dry tyres once again, yeah, everyone on those dry tyres, just on the power, can't seem to get it facing the right direction. Cut back live, and I can't particularly believe my eyes, but Felix Mexner is in the overall lead of this race. Michael Rhodes has dropped down to P9. What have we missed while we've been reviewing these incidents?
It looks like Rhodes might have come in for a pit stop from what I can see on my overlay, so maybe he took a little switch of tires there.
Might be going for dry tyres, as it looks like Mikey Stewart is coming in. This has surely got to be a switch for dry compound tyres. So maybe this is not telling us the full picture of what's going on in this race as Stewart heads into the pit lane. And I think only 20 minutes in, we might see his car lift up, and he is certainly changing his tyres.
This is an interesting track, especially with how long it is. When you get into situations like this, you'll have parts of the track that are bone dry, and it's going to really overheat those tires. And you have some parts where it's still a little wet, so you wonder when you get on dry compounds, it's going to be faster, but you still got to be really careful about those puddles and those little bit more moist parts of the track. Make sure you don't overdrive through those.
Absolutely. And I'll interrupt you there. Sorry, Zach, but he's come out right behind Joe Harrison, who I think might have switched to dry tyres as well. And maybe coming in those couple of laps later, it's actually helped him gain 5-6 seconds on Joe there. I am seeing Joe's had a crash. I want to see how bad that crash was. Oh no, it's going up Eau Rouge. It's not going to be very good, but that is quite some skillful car control to not end up in the wall. And that might be a bigger cause of having the 6 seconds reclaimed over anything else. And hearing a big crash for car 107 as well. Let's have a little look. I have a horrible feeling that this is going to be... Oh, he just gets crashed into the back of there. He was slowing down so much, and the car behind him just went straight into the back. What on earth was going on there? And then he spins it all by himself because he's got no rear wing and he's on dry tyres. And actually, I can see that rear wheel is not connected to the supports at all. What on earth happened here with the 33 car? I think he just wasn't expecting him to slow down so much and goes right into his rear end. That, I think, is a slam dunk penalty from the stewards.
Yep, I think you're right there. It looks like maybe he grabbed a little curb, had to slow down a little bit, but you know, being that car behind, you got to make sure you're paying a little bit of attention and, you know, you don't end up causing situations like that.
Jeffrey Damon here. Ooh. Oh, he just kisses the front end, but I think he might have got away with that for the most part. But that has not helped his charge towards the front of the field. Head ourselves back live and see what's happening as our current grid, Felix Mexner, is in P1, who I don't believe has come in for a pit stop yet. No, he hasn't. And it's Richard Heinrichs from the AM class, who I do believe started on dry tyres, who is in P2 and just a second behind. If there's one driver whose strategy has really worked out well today, Jeffrey Damon comes into the pits for a swap to the dry compound tyres. I think it has to be Heinrich, surely.
Yeah, he started that race on dries, but I think he put himself in a position where he was super careful. He was okay losing time in the beginning. And at the end of the day, it looks like he's going to make all that up and some more. It's going to be a good race out for him if he can keep 4 wheels on the ground.
Absolutely. And look at this. He is hounding the back of Felix Mexner, and he might be about to take a pass for the overall lead of this race. I think there is just a real struggle going on between these cars, and they're about to swap places here. And confirmation there is that Heinrichs is the only car who survived the start on dries with no issues. And I think for the first time in this series, we have an AM class driver in the overall lead of the race. And I think you have to take your hat off to Stefan Heinrichs there, who has gained 0.6 of a second through one corner, being on the right tyres, and really nailing that strategy and staying very safe at the start. If we're looking at the standings now, he is 25 seconds in front of Joe Harrison, who is the first driver to make a pit stop in this race. And I'm not sure that he could have done a better first stint.
I think especially as an AM driver, that is almost exactly what you're looking for.
Absolutely. That Aston Martin has... doesn't even look like it has a scratch on it to me. So complete hats off to him for making that strategy work. His nearest challenger in Michael Rhodes is 41 seconds behind him in the same class, as I think I might have just seen Felix Mexner dive into the pit lane. He has indeed, as getting passed by an AM class driver was enough to convince him that the track is now dry, and I think I have to agree, this track has dried very quickly in the past 30 minutes or so, and there's only a little bit of spray, but still some quite deadly puddles around, so you can't push completely just yet.
It looks like the racing line in some parts is still going to be a big no-no for some of these corners, but for the most part, the track's dried out. There's a nice line. If there isn't a line, it's looking like the track's just fully dried across.
Absolutely. So just as a reminder, Costa, I believe, is still on the wet compound tyres, so still has to make a pit stop. So we, when they do make a pit stop, he will come out quite a lot further down the pack than he is now. Joe Harrison has made his way up to pass the 699 Porsche, who definitely has had a few scratches on the front of it, and but still doing very well to be net P1 after the pit stops in that Pro-Am class. And Joe Harrison is now legitimately going to have to go and race after Heinrichs, because that is a legitimate position rather than any sort of pit stop shenanigans. Not due any more rain during this race, so this is how the track is going to stay. It's just going to slowly get rid of those puddles, slowly get rid of that small bit of water you can see coming off of tyres, and maybe not too far away from this being a fully dry track, apart from puddles in some places, which you can see are still quite deep on the inside of some of those curbs, and you really, kicking up some water there, don't want to get in those on your dry compound tyres. It will not work for you at all. Having a little look back now, Felix Mexner, I think, might be catching up to Jeffrey Damon. Yeah, you can just see him on the left-hand side of your picture there. These two fighting for position. Both have taken a pit stop, so they will be fighting overall. 1.5 seconds the gap between them as it stands, and that's going to be an interesting battle. So it looks like after all those initial pit stops, there's quite a pack of cars in the middle down from well, I was going to say down from P3, but Costa has come into the pit lane to switch to dry compound tyres, and I think that's everyone apart from JT Sawyer, who has made a pit stop in this race, and the 699 actually as well also hasn't made a pit stop, but they may well have started on dry compound tyres.
And if my overlays don't deceive me, it looks like JT with another one of those dry starters wasn't able to get quite as much of a good run as Stefan, but definitely kept himself up there. So I think he might be looking to have a good race himself as well.
Yeah, absolutely, as he's just going to have Costa come out behind him in the pits. So this is going to be a very interesting complexion to this race. We've got quite a few cars who have some damage. We can see Mikey Stewart in the Pro class is trying to get past the 699. Does so on the inside, but not for long, as Hajek has the inside line and takes that position back. But he's got Robin Wist right on his tail there. And this is going to be an interesting battle as you have a Pro-Am driver in the way of your Pro battle. Of course, no championship points for the 699 to lose by letting these two through. A bit of pride and a bit of not wanting to get slowed up from this battle, maybe, because he is defending from those two drivers, as he is entitled to do. Of course, the last thing you want is to get tied up in a crash or a spin or everything, and lose all that time back to the other cars. And Zach, is the 699 on dry tyres? Just guessing by the damage on the front of that vehicle, I'm kind of guessing they started on dries.
Yep, they did. It looks like they were another one that was able to start on dries. Took a little bit of damage, but he's able to keep it out and keep it somewhat clean, at least enough to drive that car and keep it on the road.
Absolutely. It's not looking like a significant amount of damage, a bonk on the front end, but it has really paid dividends for him, as we're seeing Robin Wist and Mikey Stewart here going for a battle as they go through the bus stop. Now, they won't want to do that too much if they want to get past the 699, who started on dry tyres. I'm sure they want to catch up with Joe Harrison for the overall race lead, but you can see him streaming off down the road there.
It also looks like P6 and P8 in our Pro-Am series with Alex and Sven are on their outlap. They switched over to dries as well. So at least from what I can see, it looks like the only two people we have left on wets is James and Virgilio. So we'll see if and when they make that stop to switch to dries. And now that everyone's out on dries, we'll see which of these drivers can start to make up some of that room that they lost in those opening laps.
Absolutely. And quite big gaps opening up between some of our drivers there. But still some very close racing to be had indeed. I'm seeing that gap for Stefan Heinrichs has reduced by about 12 seconds or so in the past couple of minutes. I think he might have had an incident himself. He's done so well on those dry tyres to not get involved with anything, but he just spins up the rear wheels. Does he keep it out of the wall? Just about, and drives himself back to the track. He's still got a 10-second lead on the race overall, but can't say that that's going to maybe keep him in front of Joe Harrison for too long if he does that again.
Yeah, I don't know that I expected him to hold the lead, but I think for him at the end of the day, seeing those couple laps led being an AM driver is going to be a real nice confident boost for him, especially knowing that he made that right choice coming out on dries and being able to keep it as clean as he was.
Absolutely. Still an amazing job from him as still this battle rages on. Doesn't look like the 699 is going to be giving up too many positions. He's still fighting to keep the two pro drivers behind him who are very close in the championship battle and, of course, on the racetrack right now. Are we going to have a little look up the inside for Wist? It hardly ever works, and he thinks a little bit better of it. Buzz does scare the Porsche off the racing line a little bit, not enough to perform any sort of move. And he continues on to be in front of those two pro drivers and lead the Pro-Am class by just over 12 seconds there. Another good drive from Michael Rhodes, who's managed to make his way back up to P7 after that pit stop to change tyres. Let's have a little look of winners and losers overall. Stefan Heinrichs, of course, up 16 places overall from that good call on strategy and keeping it out of the wall. Driver in the front of your picture in the red screen there, the 699 up 8 places overall. Very good indeed. Michael Rhodes up 7 overall. Vernon up 9 overall. Very good from him. And I think that was a little bit inevitable as Robin Wist makes his way past the 699. And Mikey Stewart is going to be wanting to do that very shortly indeed. Otherwise, he's going to lose Robin Wist in front of him, but nothing just so yet for Sebastian, looking like he's letting it through, and that gap is growing very quickly for Robin Wist in front of the Pro-Am driver. Traffic here really proving a crucial role in this race.
I think it's going to be very interesting. From what I can see, it looks like our dry starters were Sebastian, Stefan, and JT were able to start on dries and keep it clean. So at this point, Sebastian's running on some older dries while our pro drivers are out on some fresher dries. So we know as these stints continue, Sebastian's going to kind of continue to lose some of that grip, continue to lose some of that tire. And we can definitely see how eager Mikey is to get by.
Absolutely. I'm seeing, I think they've been stuck kind of behind him for a couple of laps. I can definitely feel the frustration growing, especially when you're looking at your pro class rival now pulled a second gap over the course of that lap and is going to start pulling away every lap. If he's gaining a second, you can't really afford to just kind of chill behind him for too much longer, I mean, in that battle.
It'll be very interesting. I mean, we know the Porsche tends to be really good in the wet. It's usually very good through the corners, and we can kind of see that happen as the Porsche is able to pull away a little bit on the exit. We'll just see if Mikey in that Lamborghini, if he's able to get a good run on the exit, maybe up Eau Rouge or, one of those longer straight to see if he can make that pass stick.
Absolutely. And we all know the struggles of the Lamborghini this season. It has not been anybody's favourite car as far as I can tell. But it is certainly going to be an interesting development between those couple of cars. As the gap now down below 3/10. Is Mikey going to think of a little look down the inside? Not on this particular occasion.
I think his best bet to get by here is definitely going to be, you know, maybe taking a little bit slower on the entrance to a corner, making sure he can get a really good exit speed coming up to one of these straights and seeing if he can catch that Porsche.
Absolutely. As we have passed the half an hour mark now, track looking very dry indeed on the main racing surface. We've completed 14 of a predicted 50 laps of this race, so still quite a long way to go. Seeing that Wist now 2 1/3 seconds pulled. Now, if I was Mikey, I would be looking for any opportunity to send it up the inside of Sebastian there, but obviously keeping it within track limits and without making contact. But Sebastian has about a 10-second lead on Jeffrey Damon, so he doesn't really have to worry about losing too much time here. Of course, has that damage, but you can only imagine he will use his fast repair in the pit stop in order to clean the front of that Porsche up and have it looking like it just rolled out of the factory. Now, this is quite a mixed up grid, so I'm very interested to see the average lap times on display here. Let's have a little look. Of course, we saw earlier Stefan Heinrich was having a little bit of a spin. That's why his average looks so skewed of a 2:27. But Joe Harrison averaging a 2:23. Robin Wist looks like he's gaining on him, an average of 2:22. Bit of a cork in the bottle here for Sebastian in the 699. His average is a 2:25.3, with Mikey Stewart's average being a 23.8. Quite a big difference there. Jeffrey Damon must have had a spin or an incident at some point as well, as his average is looking like a 28. And Michael Rhodes behind him, a 25.2. They're all looking reasonably even as we head back in the grid there. It'll be interesting to see if anyone can develop a bit of a rhythm now they're on dry tyres. And the track's kind of improving every lap little by little. But also whether Robin Wist can catch Joe Harrison. His current average lap time is about a second a lap faster, but I can only imagine that will normalise out as the race continues and everyone gets back in their rhythm. No pit stops, no spins, and kind of getting very used to it indeed. As still it is Mikey Stewart behind Sebastian here. Bit of water being kicked up on the exit of that corner. Hasn't managed to find a way past. There's a lapped car in their way who I think Robin Wist passed a little bit ago, but they will want to get out of the way and not get involved in this fight. Are they going to do such as we head down towards Blanchimont? Looks like they're keeping nicely to one side. Staying nice and predictable, with a little warning coming there from Stewart saying there's two cars, please don't pull over on me. But they are running quite far back in the pack and running quite slowly indeed, that particular car.
Yeah, it's looking like the track has dried up for the most part. There are still a few corners where that, you know, on the race line going on the inside are still puddled up. But other than that, it seems like probably a good 90% of our normal race line has dried up and is ready for use.
Yep, I would have to agree with you there. As we can see, Felix Mexner has just pulled a move past Michael Rhodes to go P7 overall. Michael Rhodes down to P8 and at second place in the Pro-Am class. A good chunk of time behind Stefan Heinrichs, but still a good chunk of time in front of JT Sawyer. Felix doesn't change his position within his class, but now he has 11 seconds, very close to 12 seconds actually, to go and set himself after Jeffrey Damon in the Mercedes. Have a little reminder of everyone's class positions then. Far out in front in this race, as you can see, in the AM class, Heinrichs has got a 30-second lead over Michael Rhodes, who's currently having to serve a slowdown. So that might extend by another second or two. 12 seconds back, we got JT Sawyer, and another 20 seconds back, we got Vernon, with the other two drivers in the AM class 1 and 3 laps down on their class leader, respectively. Looking at the AM class, we were just watching Sebastian in the 699 defending against Mikey Stewart. He leads the Pro-Am class by 9 seconds now, Jeffrey Damon, and then 12 seconds back from Jeffrey is Felix Mexner, who doesn't look like he's gaining on him at any particular rate. Costa ends up in P4, and Timo Gartner is always a threat there. We saw him spinning in this race and getting quite the whack in the side of. He's 1.6 seconds back on Costa now. Let's see if we can't have a look at that particular car and see if he's gaining. Alexander Drake must be a disappointing race for him again. 50 seconds back on Timo Gartner after all of the carnage that we saw at the beginning of the race. And 3 cars remain in the Pro class. Joe Harrison, Robin Wist and Mikey Stewart, all separated by 4 to 5 seconds each, so that is one to watch, and definitely not what I expected after, well, some of them were facing very much the wrong way during the first laps of this race.
I can imagine most of our drivers at this point, if they pit, have probably either taken, you know, some repairs or even used their quick repair at this point. So it'll be interesting to see how the rest of this race goes. And, you know, they're going to have to be much more careful. If you use that quick repair in the first 10 minutes, you got a lot of race left.
Absolutely. And there will be celebrations from Mikey Stewart because Sebastian has come into the pit lane. As we mentioned earlier, he started on dry compound tyres, so I assume he's coming in for what would be his scheduled pit stop. If this was a dry race, he's just going to fill up on fuel, probably put a fresh new set of dries on and head back out there. Everyone's pit strategy now is going to be slightly different. We're not going to see those big groups of almost an entire class or an entire field come in together because everyone went for the wet to dry transition for tyres at slightly different points. And also, as we've seen with Sebastian, some people started on dries and are able to kind of save a bit of fuel in those tricky wet conditions and, you know, head back out there on completely different pit strategies.
Yeah, I think this race got very interesting with that lap 1, you know, all those incidents that happened. Looking at the actual stints and the amount of drivers that are on different laps in their stints right now, it's going to be very interesting as these pit stops kind of start to flush out to see where everyone really lands as we get further into this race.
Absolutely. And Richard Heinrich started on dry compound tyres, expecting him into the pit lane shortly. He's lost the lead overall of this race, but he is competing against not only the class above, but the class above that. A good effort to lead this race for the first 45 minutes, and I think he is indeed heading into the pit lane now, which I think will please Robin Wisp because he won't have to battle him. Of course, that would have been a battle for position there. Heading into the pit lane, swapping out those dry tyres, I can imagine, and heading himself back out there with a full tank of fuel. Now, let's have a little think about the strategy here. An hour and 16 remains. If you're pitting now, or pretty much anywhere before that hour mark, you're going to have to do some sort of flash and dash at the end of the race. Now, our first wet runners came in who were kind of fast on dry tyres, I'd say about lap 6 or so. Another 6 laps from now might get you very close to that hour mark. But are you going to have to save fuel at the end? It feels like it's going to be a bit of a gamble at the end of who's going to be coming into the pit lane for that splash and who isn't, and the effect that's going to have on this race. Because Heinrich had a 30-second lead before he came into that pit lane. He's come out now 5 seconds behind JT Sawyer, who's second place in class. So the pit stops are going to make a massive difference here.
I think so. It also makes me wonder, especially with how long this track is, the tires on a dry track tend to set in pretty quick. So it makes me wonder, you know, the drivers that were able to start on dries, is it smart to cut your fuel, take a fresh pair of dries, and then right towards the end, take a refuel, a fresh set of dries again, and see if you can really push those times on those nice sticky wheels?
Absolutely. And you can see there, the track temperature has come up very quickly after it's dried out. We're looking at 31 degrees Celsius there. And, you know, that is going to warm up your tyres very quickly. As Zach was saying, lots of turns around here that are going to heat up reasonably equally each side of your tyres as well. I wonder if some people are thinking, if it gets much hotter, about the potential effects of tyre wear, and yeah, splitting that final pit stop, coming in early for a fresh set of boots.
It's always interesting on those longer tracks like this, especially when you start off on, you know, a track that was, I think at the beginning we started on maybe like 19 degrees, 20 degrees, you know, and then that last 6 laps, like you said, it's gone up almost 10 degrees Celsius. So it's quite a jump for a lot of these drivers. And you wonder how the handling's changed as well with that temperature change.
Absolutely, and I think some people might have gone a bit more conservative with their setups as well. If you whack a bit more rear wing on your car because you're expecting it to stay wetter for longer, you're going to pay that penalty down the very long straights for the entirety of this race, and it's going to make it very difficult to pass anyone. So you might be relying on a little bit of the undercut in order to get past a driver who you're faster than. You just can't kind of send it down the straights. Seeing Timo Gartner up through Eau Rouge there. He is gaining on the purple car that was in the front of your picture of João Costa, the number 11. And now this is certainly for position. We did see Timo Gartner get T-boned at the beginning of this race from what I believe was pole in the Pro-Am class. And he's having, a bit like the Nürburgring, to fight his way back up in this field as he's P4 overall, just over 30 seconds off of Jeffrey Damon, who currently leads the Pro-Am class. Of course, lots of pit stops to go on that can change the complexion of this race. And Timo now within a second of the car in front, which means going to start getting a little bit of that slipstream effect. And that's certainly going to help him down the straights, especially if he does have a bit more rear wing to get past the Acura of Costa. And that Porsche handling very nicely around these curves. But you can see they're still avoiding what you might see in the dry. Ooh, almost for Timo. He ran straight through that gravel and straight through that water. And demonstrating my point perfectly, that there's still some points on this track where there are puddles and they will just send you off to the nether realm.
Yeah, it looks like it's mostly dried out. Fane was definitely, I think I pronounced that correctly. It's definitely starting to dry out more than it was, but there's still a couple big puddles around those key apexes of the corners that it's going to make them taking those at speed a lot more difficult.
Absolutely. And I think that having a pass round there will be very difficult, very hard to get 2 cars wide. But if you can force your rival to have to drive through those puddles, you know, with their other option essentially being hitting you, then it might well work out well, as we see Robin Wist has come out in front of this pack and on to some brand new tyres and brand new fuel. This is interesting because Robin Wist did come into the pit lane to change from wets to dries, and I think he might be struggling a little bit to get them up to temperature straight out of the pit lane, as he's just been passed by Costa, and might take half a lap, 3/4 of a lap or so for him to heat his tyres and get back again, as Timo Gartner is right on the back of him and may well make a little move as we head down with that massive splash of water. That won't help you heat up your tyres at all. Is Timo going to send it down the inside? No, he just tucks in behind. But that is going to cost him time in the battle in front. It's now dropped back to 1.5 seconds. This time last lap, it was under a second.
Spa is one of those tracks where, you know, you come out of the pits almost straight into a very technical portion of the track. You get a little bit of a straight, but then it's almost, again, right back into one of the more technical parts of the track. So when you come out on cold tires, especially with someone who's got a warm set behind you, it makes it really difficult for the car behind and, you know, really nervous for the car in front to get through that.
I mean, I absolutely agree, and you can just see the difference here. Rowan Wist, a pro-class driver, is holding up Timo here, who is on much older tyres, and is pretty much pushing that Mercedes round the track, and has lost, in the process, near to 1.5 seconds on his rival in front before he gets past the Mercedes and kind of decides that, you know, I thought I'd sit behind you, save a bit of fuel and kind of chill, until he realized how much time he was losing.
Yep, and then that's the interesting part, especially with these, you know, the Pro-Am and the Am classes, because, you know, here in about a lap or two, Robin's tires are going to set in, and we're probably going to see him skyrocket back out in front and try to make those positions right back up.
Absolutely, and it's just an interesting strategic moment in this race here, because we're looking at 1 hour and 8 minutes to go. It must have been Robin one of the first to come in for dry tyres during the transition. So is anybody going to be able to eke it out past that hour mark and essentially save 40 to 50 seconds on a pit stop? Let's have a look at how recently everyone stopped. As I was saying, Robin's 1 lap on his tyres. Harrison and Stewart 14, 13 laps each. Some of them there, I'm looking at potentially Alexander Drake, Samuel Garrett, those who have a bit less usage on their tyres, might just be able to, you know, go a couple more laps and stay out there. I'm not exactly sure how many laps Robin did on his dry compound tyres before he came into the pit lane. I don't know if you have that information available, Zach.
Let me see if my eye overlays have kept up here.
While we wait to see, Joe Harrison has done 15 laps. And I think he was a couple laps different from Robin Wist, so it can't be too far away, maybe 16, 17 laps total on a set of tyres.
I think you're about right. For me, my eye overlays did not catch up at the beginning, so I'll really be able to see here into, you know, the later part of these races. But we did see Joe pit on lap 6. He's 15 laps in, so I would imagine here in the next 2 to 3 laps, he's got to be getting ready to pit on these tires and on that fuel.
Yeah, so that makes me just having a look at the pit stops down the field. Oster has done 11 laps on his tyres. Drake has done 10 laps on his. Those two cars might be able to stretch out just getting past that hour mark. Harrison's done 15. It'll be 16 as he comes around to the line. If he can stretch it to 17, I think he'll be very close to an hour to go, but I don't think he'll just make it. There might be a minute or two short. But Drake, who's 50 seconds behind the pack in front of him, who all need to pit, he might make quite a gain through the pit stop phase if he's able to save that last pit stop from essentially going a bit longer on the wet compound tyres and sparring any other dramas, maybe gain the majority of that 50 seconds back to the Am field in front.
I think you're correct. It's going to be very interesting to see how, you know, once we pass this hour mark and these pits start to happen, we're going to see a lot of shakeup in the field.
Absolutely. I'm going to keep the overlay up for everyone to watch the number of laps that everyone has been on their tyres and have another peek back at it as we hit the hour mark, because essentially, you know, anyone who's able to stretch it past that hour is going to be in a good shape to maybe avoid that last, 10-minute flash and dash if they can avoid it, because of course they took the pain of an extra pit stop by going longer on their wet compound tyres. Joe Harrison has passed the start-finish line again to do 16 laps on his dry compound tyres there. And no one rushing to the pit lane that I can see right now. And as we approach that hour mark, I think I might... Ooh, that was a slide from Timo Gartner as he gets Robin Wist closer to his back bumper. Now his tyres have heated up. I think I am going to give myself a quick bio break. Zach, please take over the action for us.
Not a problem. So it definitely looks like once these drivers are hitting about, 14, 15 laps on, that car gets a little bit harder to handle. Those tires get a little bit more worn in. So we'll see. Ooh, looks like Timo almost got a slowdown there. That was really close. It'll definitely be interesting to see how these pit stops are going to shake up the field here. I'm keeping my eyes on, who's going to be coming in and who's staying out. For the most part, the track has settled, at least for the moment, right around 30 degrees. So definitely warmer than the start, and it makes me wonder again, did any of these drivers plan for that warmer track? Did they take a safer setup? Definitely a lot of decisions to be made in this race. Let's see here. It looks like Robin's tires have warmed up. He's looking to get these positions back, not wanting to wait, wanting to make up a lot of that time back up to P2 and 1. All right, it looks like we got Joe in the pits at lap 17. So it looks like we were right. About 17 laps, maybe they're able to squeeze an extra one out, but that'll be the full run pits for most of our drivers.
So having a look at that, that is 2.5 minutes short of the hour mark. I'm feeling a bit more confident about Costa, about Drake being able to extend that stint. They got 5 more laps to go. They might be able to get themselves back in this race simply by taking the pain of staying on the wet tyres for longer.
I think you're right. We'll see if it's enough to get them back caught up to the field. I know Alex Drake was one of our fastest qualifiers, so we'll see if he's able to turn that into, something good for himself by the end of this race.
Absolutely. Drake down 2, so's Timo Gartner, and so is Costa. Damon and Mexner up 3 in their class respectively. And yeah, they're certainly going to want to claw back those positions for the championship, of course, and see what exactly happens as the pit stops start to unfold. So yeah, coming up to that hour mark now, and it's Rowan Wist who's actually still behind Timo Gartner, even with those tyres getting a bit warmer, but I can't imagine he'll be wanting to stick behind him for too much longer, hoping that Timo comes into the pits a little bit. He's done 16 laps on his tyres, so we can expect him in either this lap or the lap after, I think. And yeah, still that horrible puddle on the inside there. Looks like it could catch some drivers out, but hasn't so far. And
we know through that line, the entry and the exit is really important. So having those puddles there really throws off the amount of speed you're able to carry in and carry out.
Absolutely. And something we haven't spoken about too much this race is incident points. Of course, everyone who got involved in a spin or some of those kind of first lap get-togethers, they're going to have racked up quite a few incident points, 4, maybe up to 8 or so. Not too many places to get incident points that, around this track, but there are a few opportunities to get off tracks, and of course we saw them make a massive difference to the lead in Silverstone as Robin Wist looking up the inside, which will become the outside of Timo Gartner now. Looks like he's going to try the long way around. Is it going to stick Mercedes on Porsche? It's Timo who's still ahead, but I think Robin is going to get a little bit of a better run as we head into the bus stop. He's flashing his light. He's going to go down the inside and kick up a bit of water there. I'm not sure he was completely expecting it. And then Timo Gartner, just for his trouble, pulls into the pit lane.
Looks like we had Mikey Stewart come into the pits there as well, which will be very interesting for him because he's right at that tipping point of the hour mark when he comes out of those pits. So it'll be very interesting to see if he's going to have enough fuel to get to the end or if he's going to have to do a little bit of fuel saving to make it there.
Absolutely. So, as we said, Timo Gartner in, but there are still that, couple of drivers. Michael Rhodes looks like he's been in. James Vernon has been in as well. And Heinrich has retaken the lead of the AM class. 21 seconds now is the gap to Michael Rhodes. And, he's still staying very strong in that AM class. But the pit stop strategy at the end, as Michael Rhodes just completes his first lap on the new set of tyres he's on, will be very interesting indeed. Because for what an amazing job Heinrich did at the beginning of this race, I think it would be a real shame for him if he lost out on the lead for an extra pit stop that he has to make. But conversely, people like Costa and Drake, who still have good few laps left on their tyres, I think they will be feeling pretty good about their chances of not having to take an extra pit stop on their tyres and able to stay out and stretch. I did see a very brief yellow flag in Sector 1, I believe. I've got a crash from Alexander Drake here. Hopefully nothing too serious for him. I think it might have been a bit of water on the inside that just got those tyres and spun him round towards the pit exit. No damage done. Luckily for him, only a couple of seconds and a bit of pride loss at the end of the race. But showing that water can still...
If you look into that hairpin, that very, very inside of that hairpin is still a little wet.
Yeah, showing that those puddles can still very much catch you out. We've got Jeffrey Damon, who's had a bit of an incident in the pit lane. Was this just him heading into the pits and catching a bit of water? Yeah, I don't think there was actually any incident there at all. Now, Michael Rhodes, P2 in the AM class, is on the back of Timo Gartner. Both of these cars have made a pit stop in recent laps. And I'm pretty sure, I think they might well be fighting for position. They are indeed. Timo Gartner now 21 seconds off of Jeffrey Damon. His next person to try and get in this race, but it is Felix Mexner right now, yet to pit for the current round of pit stops. He takes the lead of the overall race. Joe Harrison behind, who has Costa right behind him in that Pro-Am class. As looks like Michael Rhodes is losing some time on the back of Timo Gartner. He won't be super disappointed about that. He's not fighting Timo. He wants to just get as much lap time as he possibly can in order to try and catch up with Stefan Heinrich, who, if we have a little look, we might be able to have a look at the lap time comparisons and those pit stops causing quite the anomaly there, but in the laps before, Rhodes about a second or so slower than Timo, so probably won't be catching him up in a particular hurry. So it's Costa now, who is in P3 overall in this race, and 1 second off of Joe Harrison's, whose Ford you can just see in front of you there. It's not really a battle for him to have, but he would very much like to catch up with Felix Maxner, who has come into the pit lane. Costa continues down the start-finish straight, but can only feel that Costa will be coming in on this particular lap to resume that battle. And just having a look here, doesn't look like there's going to be any pro-class drivers getting in the way that time, as Joe Harrison takes the overall lead. And I think Costa just about in the slipstream of that very wide Mustang there will want to pick up as much slipstream as possible. You can see the gain down the straight, not just with your timing tower, but also just looking at it. And he will be very happy with that in his battle to catch up with Felix, who has come out just 3 seconds behind Richard Heinrich. But he will drop a little bit further back because, of course, he's got to heat up that new set of tyres. So that might make a very nice gap for those two to have a battle in, as Timo Gartner 16 seconds behind these two, as we're expecting Costa into the pits. And also heating up is Robin Wist, 4 seconds, keeping the gap fairly constant against Joe Harrison. You can just see his car, white in the background on the exit curbing there. But still keeping Joe Harrison honest. I think not having David in this race has made it interesting for these pro drivers. Of course, there's only 3 of them left. 2 of them have retired from incidents in that wet weather. And there may be a change in championship leader after this round. Of course, the drop rounds will start getting applied to the standings after this point, so it'd be interesting to see how they shake out, take everyone's worst result away, and see what happens.
I think you're right. This track in particular, and this weekend, seems to have brought some drivers up and some drivers down, so it'll definitely be interesting to see how the points shake out at the end of all this.
As we see Costa into the pit lane, Alexander Drake I'm expecting to see in the pit lane this lap as well. We've got 52 minutes to go. If I was either of those 2 drivers coming into the pit lane now, I would feel pretty confident about not having to make that final pit stop. You know, we saw it at Silverstone as well. It was about 45 to 50 minutes for some drivers before they had to come in the pits. Might have to do a little bit of fuel saving so as not to make that final splash, but I think it might work out for them.
I think you're right. It might have been the best decision that they could have made. It seems to have worked out almost perfectly for them.
Absolutely. Comeback race a little bit for JT Sawyer here, who is on the back of James Vernon, and they're absolutely fighting for position in that AM class. JT was very far up the front before the rain kind of dismayed any of his chances of leading his class, as we see Heinrich in the pit lane and dropping down the order. He has come in awfully early, I believe. 10 laps. He's doing a bit of split on his strategy, and that convinces me even more that now is kind of the optimal time to pit if you want to go to the end of this race. He's decided to take his 10-lap splash in the middle of this race, probably put on some new tyres as well, and now go to the end, where he's looking maybe just over 25 seconds or so away from Michael Rhodes, but Michael Rhodes still has to make a pit stop as well.
Definitely going to be very interesting. If my overlays don't deceive me, it may look like JT and Alex were actually able to pull out an 18-lap stint before they had to pit.
That is very interesting indeed. Oh, and Costa, excuse
Oh,
me, has a meatball flag. That came out of nowhere. I saw a yellow flag, but didn't exactly see what was happening. Let's have a quick cut to that and see what happened to him. He's just coming through. He's on fresh tyres at this point. So they might be a little cold, and they were a little cold. And he's just gone straight back.
oh.
That is a crazy amount of damage to have to the back of your car. I think he will be hoping that he hasn't used his fast repair yet, but he's definitely going to lose some time in the pits. Have a look here. He was slowing down, and he just lost the rear end all by himself. And I think he might have No, I can see the brake lights on. I was going to say he let go of the brakes, but he absolutely didn't. I could see the lights on as he was going backwards, and that has not gone well for him at all.
Yeah, in that corner, it can be a little tough to keep it off the wall because you have that little bump right as you start to hit the dirt. So it almost launches you a little bit and gives you a little bit more sliding power when you hit that gravel.
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to drop down, well, 14th, second to last of the cars still running in this race. And that's going to be, I think, quite disappointing from him. He was about mid-pack in his class, if I remember correctly. Maybe actually a bit further towards the front, because he was fighting with Felix Mexner, wasn't he? Maybe P2, P3, that kind of area. We got Drake into the pit lane now as well for his pit stop, and I could almost say with certainty at this point that he's going to end up making it to the end of this race on that fuel.
Yeah, it looks like he made an insanely smart decision. He was one of 2 drivers that were able to pull out an 18-lap stint, and that put him, just under that 50-minute mark. It looks like he's coming out with right around 48 and a half minutes or so left. So I think you're right. I think that puts him very comfortably in that area where he will be able to finish the race on that fuel and those tires.
So let's have a little look at the class standings then to kind of understand the implications. So Alexander Drake is currently 93 seconds behind the class leader in Jeffrey Damon, who has pit recently, indeed, 4 laps ago. Probably looking at about a minute or so time loss from an extra pit stop, and with the exception of Costa and I think Felix Mexner as well, everyone else has made a pit stop probably slightly too early to avoid a splash. So I can see him getting up towards where kind of Timo Gartner is, maybe a little bit behind it, and getting a podium or slightly behind in this race, as we're seeing Alexander Drake, who we were just talking about, and JT Sawyer having a little battle here. And of course, this is for position on the racetrack, but not for position in class. So it's and JT, lovely up the inside there, splashes a bit of water over the front of the McLaren behind, but manages to make his way through. And disappointment here for the guy who we thought could win AM class comfortably in this race. He's managed to get a black flag. And
it looks like it's coming into the pit, so it makes me wonder if that might be a speeding in the pit lane, which I believe is a stop and hold.
That may well be the case. And I've got the. Unfortunately, I've got the flag covering the pit lane there, so I couldn't see whether he came back in again. But his black flag has now cleared. 47 seconds behind Michael Rhodes. Now, if he's able to make it to the end, I don't think it's the end of the world for him. As we say, pit time loss, looking about a minute of 5 seconds or so around here. But that is going to put him very close to Michael Rhodes for the lead of that AM class, I think. We see JT Sawyer once again battling with Alexander Drake. Alexander Drake in the Pro-Am class, JT in the Am class, but that's not going to stop them having a great battle as Drake goes round the outside on warming tyres, but he's got to put some tyres in the wet stuff, and that has slowed him down and let JT go back through. He's going to switch to the inside, but oh, and there's a spinner in the background of a white Lamborghini there. Oh, and he almost reverses back into a car. We'll have a little look. I think that was Samuel Garrett in the background there going for a spin. We'll have a little look at that in a moment's time, but carry on board with JT, who's managed to get that position back off of Alexander Drake and managed to keep in front of him overall there. That's gone quite nicely for JT. He's 54 seconds behind Heinrich, but he's not stopping it having him a race.
And going back, it looks like Heinrichs might have just gotten a drive-through, so I'm wondering if maybe he hit that 50 incident limit.
That is an interesting one there. I think it's 21 points, if I'm not mistaken, for a drive-through and 50 for a disqualification. I might be wrong there. Rather than 50. But we'll keep an eye on it, as I was wrong there. JT Sawyer is 5 seconds behind Heinrich after that drive-through penalty, so he's not going to want to lose any time at all in chasing him down. As Costa still in the pit lane with that meatball flag, and might not be coming back out onto the racetrack again. It's been a good couple of minutes now. But let's cut away from this battle for a moment, or let's not, as actually Drake has got a much better run out of the bus stop and might be looking for an overtake on JT as we head down the Kemmel Straight. Looking now, I think he's biding his time, keeping his foot on the throttle and in the slipstream of JT Sawyer heading up Eau Rouge. Is he going to be able to make a move? He's gaining. He's looking around the outside. He has got a great run on JT, but are we going to see a repeat of what we saw last time where JT forces him to the outside where there is still a puddle and that slows him down? They're wheel to wheel down here. JT, is he going to brake later? I think on this occasion, Drake's made it around the outside. He's not in the puddles, and I think that move might stick for a little bit longer.
Definitely made that one look clean.
Absolutely a wonderful overtake from Drake there. So as we were earlier, let's have a little look at what happened to Samuel here. I think he might have just got on a bit of water, or oh, he did. You can see it really kick up, and it just sent him spinning round, and he almost reversed into that car coming behind him. I don't think that was intentional. I think he was holding the brakes and just kind of letting fate take where he wanted to go. I want to see that from his onboard, because I think he might need a new pair of underpants. Probably got a little bit distracted from watching this battle in front, then straight through the water, and that's sending him round. Very unfortunate for Samuel there, but luckily no damage done to his car, and he was able to get facing the right direction again. As another yellow flag in Sector 2, and that's Felix Mexner who's gone for a spin, and he can't rejoin the track because there are other cars coming through, and maybe everyone getting a bit too confident with where the puddles are on this track, because we are seeing quite a few spins indeed. Let's have a little look at that from Felix. What happened to him? Just got a bit too confident. I think the rear didn't have that confidence, and taking the smart move actually to reverse backwards onto the runoff area and not sit in the middle of the track, get himself out of harm's way when there were no cars coming. But I think that has cost him. I saw Timo Gartner go through on him there, and I think that might have been the only position he lost in his class actually. But quite lucky to get away with that one.
It's tough for some of these drivers too, right? Because we're hitting we're hitting towards the end of the race. So if you're trying to make these tires stretch to the end, every time you spin, every time you overdrive, you're taking a little bit more heat in, taking a little bit more life out, and it's going to make those final 5 laps a lot harder to get through.
Absolutely. And still, some drama to come in this race. Robin Wist, who was about 4 seconds off of Joe Harrison. He's not dropped off massively, just over 5 seconds away now. So still all to play for in that pro class. Especially with the you know, you can gain a couple of seconds by stretching your stints by a lap or two. And all to play for still. I have a feeling that Costa will not be coming back out onto this racetrack because he has been in the pits for an awfully long time, and something tells me he might have used his fast repair earlier in the race, so he's having to sit through that meatball in order to clear it, and he's going to be many laps down by the time he comes out of the pit lane. And let's have a look at what else might be happening out here on the track. Everyone's gaps looking pretty stable at the moment. Have a little look at the overall standing. You've got Samuel Garrett, who we saw go for that little spin earlier on the back of James Vernon, who has dropped 9 seconds to JT Sawyer now. And they were only fighting a couple of laps ago, so quite a big time loss there. I can't see a crash or an incident for him, so might have had one we didn't pick up. I think the real story to keep your eyes on for the end of this race is Stefan Heinrich. He's currently 44 seconds back on Sebastian in the 699 and 50 seconds or so back on Michael Rhodes. But he's served a drive-through penalty, but he was the overall leader of this race at some point after an amazing strategy call and an amazing drive, really, to keep dry tyres on what was probably quite clearly, after we got going, a wet track, and not to end his race in the wall like some drivers in this race. He's done pretty well with that, as far as I can see. But that drive-through penalty has really cost him quite a lot of time, and whether he can gain back that class lead from Michael Rhodes.
And from what I can see, it does look like he's got, about a 4-lap advantage when it comes to the pit stop. So that might be able to save him a little bit, but he's definitely going to need to start putting down some quick times to make up that gap again.
Well, we think he might be able to get to the end of this race, potentially, but Michael Rhodes, I think, certainly aren't on fuel. So I think that's going to make it an interesting battle. And actually, you can see that bright yellow car, kind of all by itself, really, of Michael Rhodes in the background there. Want to have a little look, if we can't look at everyone's average lap times. Of course, Richard Heinrich was serving the drive-through penalty. That is why his lap time looks so bad. Michael Rhodes' average lap time right now is doing a 2:20.8. Actually gaining on Felix Mexner here, who you can see in the Martini liveried Porsche by quite a margin, 2 seconds on the past few laps. And might well be looking to kind of put a few cars between him and his closest rivals. As we see 699 has come into the pit lane. This will be for his final pit stop with 37 minutes to go. That moves Heinrich overall right up to Michael Rhodes until it doesn't. And I think that might flip again, as I think they might actually be very close on track out of the pit lane. Yes, they were. And Heinrich just getting in front. And now we know we've got a good timing on the pit stops, because that stop for the Sebastian in the 699 was about 45 seconds or so. He mustn't have taken a full fuel load with 36 minutes to go. So we will see how that plays out for those who have to pit once more in this race. Samuel Garrett jumping around there in the standings. James Vernon now a lap down overall. And just seeing what happens here with this race. Everyone's kind of sorted out a little bit more into their class boundaries. That being the top pro drivers who are in their gaggle of 3. Then it's the pro-ams. Then it's 2 AMs. 2 Pro-Ams, and then a bit of a mix as we get a little bit further back.
Interesting too, it looks like when Sebastian came out of the pits, it put him just a little under a second in front of Alex Drake. I'm sure he was hoping that he could have made that out just in front of him, but on the 5-lap more warmed up tires, we'll see if he's going to be able to get by him in this next straight.
Absolutely. Of course, stone cold tires out the pit lane. Track temperature now down to 27 degrees Celsius, so they won't be warming up as fast as they did earlier in the race. Bit of cloud cover over the track. And of course, Alex Drake, we think he's able to go on the end with this fuel and these tyres. So this is going to be very interesting indeed as he looks round the outside. Doesn't look like there's really going to be anywhere for him to go. But as we head into the start of the lap, we're going to head down 3 reasonably long straights. And maybe he can just get a nice drive out of Eau Rouge on those warmer tyres to fly past him down the Kemmel straight. He's right on the back of that Porsche. Is he going to make a move down the inside? Yes, he is. Last of the latest breakers. And I think he gets that done pretty cleanly indeed. But of course, Porsche behind almost went into the back of him. But of course, he's now got a better run and they're side by side heading into Eau Rouge. I want to close my eyes, but I think Alexander Drake is just enough ahead to command that corner and not have an absolutely monumental accident. Is the slipstream going to be good enough to help Sebastian on his drive forward? I don't think it is. I think he's just too far back. And look at that. 0.6 of a second. That's what a nice set of hot tyres will do for you on this racetrack right now.
I think that's exactly what he was going for there too. You know, the last thing you want to do is be stuck behind a car on cold tires going up into Eau Rouge. You can end up losing a massive amount of time. In a lot of cases, you'll end up catching a slowdown. You know, with that speed difference, you got to do a lot to try to keep yourself off the back of that car in front.
Absolutely agreed there. And Alexander Drake on those hotter tyres has managed to pull just over a second gap now. These GT3 cars, you're looking to form kind of an advantage from the slipstream at about 1.2 seconds. After that point, you really don't get much advantage on the slipstream. So Alexander here will be wanting to get that gap nicely so he's not giving a free ride to Sebastian behind. And in the closing parts of this lap, looks like he has, but he did pick up a bit of gravel on the outside there and certainly a 1x for his troubles, and has actually kept Sebastian just about in that window, but I don't think he's going to get a good enough drive to use any sort of slipstream effect.
And you know, also, we're not really able to see how many incidents these drivers have. That's going to be another thing to manage too. You can make it to the end of the race, you know, without having to pit again, but can you make it to the end of the race without collecting that drive-through?
Absolutely, and maybe the most demoralizing thing that can happen to you is pick up that drive-through on the lap you wanted to pit anyway, because then you have to drive through the pit lane twice in a row, and nobody wants that because you just see all of the positions absolutely fade away from you. JT Sawyer is in the pit lane now, and he looks like he might be safe from Vernon behind. No, he won't be. He'll get past, but I'm pretty sure that Vernon has to take another pit stop. Certainly safe from Garcia, who is 2 laps behind him.
And you are correct. James Vernon, he's on his, let's see, he's on his 12th lap. So he's only got about 5 laps left on those, on that fuel and on those tires. So I think JT will end up coming back and catching that lead up. You know, and he'll have just maybe about 15, maybe 20 minutes to hold that position.
Yeah, that is that's going to be an interesting battle come the end of this race. The Rowan Wist has just been into the pit lane, 25 seconds back on Mikey Stewart now for his final pit stop. I think he's going to hope that he might be able to gain a bit of time on Joe Harrison, get a bit closer to him for the end of this race, because Joe needs to pit again, as does the number 7 of Stewart in that pro class. So I think it'd be interesting to see what exactly happens there. As just watching the gap between Michael Rhodes and Heinrich, and it's kind of got out to 48 seconds now. I think that Heinrich is in a little bit of trouble now to keep the lead of that race for the AM class, which we thought was pretty safe when he was in the lead of this race just about an hour ago. And I think that he's under threat from Michael Rhodes for the lead, who has won every single of the AM class races so far. But I think that drive-through really has cost him a chance to have a comfortable finish, at least.
Yeah, that, and it looks like, you know, he took a little bit of a slide coming out of the curve Paul Frere, so it's definitely going to be up to him to just try and keep this race clean, you know, and keep that position.
Indeed, I think we can have a little look at that slide through curve Paul Frere now, and yep, he goes for a bit of a slide, manages to keep the car facing the right direction though. So yeah, that lead of Michael Rhodes, 53 seconds now. And having a little look, Michael Rhodes will be pitting in 3 or 4 laps time, depending on how well he saved his fuel. I think that Michael Rhodes might well come out of the pit lane in front of Heinrich here, and he's going to have to put quite an effort in to regain the lead of the AM class that looked almost certain when we were here about an hour ago.
I think you're correct. The average, looking at what I have in my overlays, the average pit stop for a full fuel and tires is between 48 to 50 seconds, depending on if you had any fuel saving in the tank. You know, so he's 52 seconds behind, unless he can make up some amount of time. Oh, and it looks like Michael Rhodes might have... Oh, no, it looks like he's going into the pits. So when he went into the pits, there was about a 51-second gap. So when Rhodes comes out, he's either going to be very close or just a tad bit in the lead.
Of course, it's going to be interesting to watch this one, because it's not just the stop time. Physically being stopped in the pit lane, of course, you lose that time. You're going 72 kilometers per hour as you head down the pit lane, so you're going to lose a little bit of time for that. Not as much as you would have seen in events like the Spa 24 hours, which uses the endurance pit lane. We're using the Formula 1 pit lane today, which is much shorter indeed. So Michael Rhodes is still in the pit lane as Heinrich comes up to the bus stop, and as we pass that pit entry, you're going to see on the left hand side of your picture that that gap keeps coming down, but Michael Rhodes is out of the pit lane now. So it is indeed Rhodes who has taken the lead of this race. And as we cross the start-finish line and past the pit exit, that's a massive gap, 14.5 seconds now between Heinrich and Rhodes. That drive-through penalty, I think, has cost him the win of this race.
I think so. With the drive-through penalty and that little slide that he took, you know, is definitely enough to push him further back. And, you know, with Michael Rhodes coming in, he didn't have to take a full pit stop. You only need enough fuel to get to the end of the race. So he was able to get out of the pits in just under 43 seconds.
Daniel asking, are they on IMSA fuel? No, it's a custom BOP for this series. They're on endurance fuel today, so I believe their fuel tanks are somewhere around the 70% range. So they're able to run longer than the 50% of IMSA. So it's not a full tank, but it is not the half tank of IMSA as you might expect. So Costa has come out of the pit lane, and I can only commend him after that meatball flag, 9 laps down on the next car in his class, but very commendable to come back out of the pit lane and wanting to finish this race. I can only commend that. I think I would be off down the pub at this point after seeing the amount of damage that he had to his car. He was fighting with the top 3 in this class at some point in time, but not any longer as we head into the final 25 minutes of this race. Actually seeing a few cars, saw one a little bit earlier, but now Timo Gartner has a slowdown penalty. Everyone pushing as we get towards the end of this race. Heinrichs with the tyre difference, as we see, I think it was Joe Harrison heading into the pit lane. He has brought the gap down to 9 seconds. I'm not sure that's entirely on pace. I think that might be Michael Rhodes heating up his tyres, which of course Heinrichs already done in this race, but taking that little trip into the gravel won't help that. It's a big ask, I think, with 25 minutes to go, to end up on the back of Michael Rhodes and make the overtake. I think he would need some crazy pace to get up there. And
he's definitely got to be very on point. Can't afford to get any off tracks. He's got to be in that racing line and making those fastest laps for sure.
And he actually has, for position, quite a few Pro-Am drivers he has to get past. Drake, Sebastian in the 699. He's got 2 cars in between him that he's fighting for position if he wants to catch Michael Rhodes as well. So it's not just catching the time. You've got to catch and pass those cars as well, who don't really have an incentive to hold him up, but also don't want to lose time in their own battle. I mean, looking there, it's 5 seconds or so between those 2 cars. You're not going to want to lose too much time, as I think another disappointment for JT Sawyer coming this way. He's ended himself with a black flag, or what I can only presume to be incident limit, because I don't think he's been in the pit lane too recently.
Yep, he's only 3 laps out, so I think you're correct. He hit that, that first incident limit there. Gonna give him a drive through, and probably means he's out of the race for that top 3, but we'll see if he can do anything here.
Indeed, it looks like we're hitting the point in the race, 23 minutes to go, where some drivers are starting to hit that incident limit. Reminder that there are extra points as Drake has made his way past Michael Rhodes, and that's going to help Heinrich actually, because he now has 1 less car to pass, and so hopefully for him at least, Sebastian will get past Michael Rhodes as well, maybe slow him down a little bit on the way. But as a reminder for everyone, there's a point on offer for fastest lap in your class, and also a point on offer if you're able to finish the race with 0 incident points. We saw it at Daytona that a couple of drivers actually ended up with 0 incident points, but given the chaos of the wet start to this race, I would be awfully surprised if anyone has indeed ended up with 0 incident points come the finish, aside from those drivers who are out, but they will be ineligible to score that point in particular. Looking at Sebastian here, as he's trying to hunt down Michael Rhodes, and then by proxy hunt down Alexander Drake as well, as we look at who's remaining in this race. We've got a yellow flag in Sector 3. I have a horrible feeling it's João Costa, and he's got a meatball again. What on earth has happened to him in this final sector? I have a horrible feeling I know what's coming. He loses it. That's a high-speed crash. And I think that car is going to stay in the pit lane for the end of this race.
I think you might be right. It looks like he just took a little bit too much speed going into that fast left, caught a little bit on the curb, and, especially when you're going those speeds, any sort of bumping or movement of the car can cause that back end to just flick out on you.
Of course, he has sat in the pit lane for the past, you can just see he tried to catch a slide. Unfortunately, that was the end of his car. That was in the wall. He just caught it from the off-board camera that his rear right wheel was not turning while he was on the throttle. So that suspension is very much finished. And unfortunate for him, I commended him for coming back out the pit lane. He's not going to lose any positions. He was 9 laps down on the whole field at this point, so nothing really to lose for him. But very unfortunate to see his race end that way again. Maybe he will try and come back out for the final laps. Depends how much suspension damage that car has had. With, according to my estimates there, about 10 laps to go in this race.
Look, we got Mikey Stewart and James Vernon coming into their final pit stops.
Yeah.
I believe that is going to put Joe Harrison back in the lead.
Indeed, there's Joe Harrison back in the lead of the Pro class. Don't see Jeffrey Damon in just yet. But, Mikey Stewart is in the pit lane. I was under the impression he'd already done his final stop, but I might be wrong. And I am. He's done 17 laps on that set of tyres, but no longer. He's got a fresh set. And
looks like we got Timo in the pits now as well.
Indeed, looking like a lot of pitting going on for all of our drivers. Just looking through, as you just mentioned, Timo Gartner in the pits. Who else is going to have to make a pit stop in this race? Richard Heinrichs won't. Samuel Garrett is very likely to, unless he has some incredibly slow lap times. And Felix Mexner and Jeffrey Damon look like the only cars left on track who might be left to make a pit stop in this race. And it'll be very interesting to see how that works itself out as we come to the final 20 minutes.
Looks like after that pit stop, that puts Alex Drake about 40 or so seconds behind what would be P3. So it looks like for him, P4 is going to be his spot unless we see any mistakes made in the field above.
Well, we do have Sebastian, who is 5 or so seconds off the back of Drake there. So he might be trying to make a bit of a challenge. He's got to get past Michael Rhodes first, though.
My apologies, you are correct. And he is on about 7 lap fresher tires as well. So he's going to have a little bit more grip, especially when we hit the final 10 minutes of this race.
Absolutely. Let's see how that transpires. And Jeffrey Damon comes into the pit lane. That's going to give Joe Harrison overall lead back of this race. Robin Wist behind a lapped car here. Ooh, almost goes into the back of him, but wouldn't want that to happen in the closing stages. And that's Robin Wist back into P2. And very shortly, I think we're going to see Mikey Stewart back into P3 in this race. And there we have it. So the question for Jeffrey Damon is how close to Felix Mexner is he going to come out? I think it's going to be by quite a way, because with 20 minutes to go, that is going to be a very short pit stop indeed. And in fact, he's coming to the pit exit now and has a very healthy lead indeed. Felix Mexner just coming down the start-finish straight. We will see that gap normalise down to... No, it is
about
40 seconds. Oh, 13 seconds. Sorry, I am looking at the gaps rather than the intervals. So that gap looks pretty stable come the end of this race. And everyone may be looking like... there's the closest gap at the moment looks to be Sebastian, the 699, on the back of Michael Rhodes. As the gap there is looking like it is just under 2 seconds. He may well feel like he has a chance if he pushes hard in the final 16 minutes to catch up with Alexander Drake for P4 in the Pro-Am class. And don't think Michael Rhodes will want to fight him too hard, because if he does risk Stefan Heinrich catching up to the back of them, whose gap now down to 7 seconds. I'd say he's done a pretty good job, but that gap is just so large to catch up before the end of this race. He's going to have to average about 2 seconds a lap in order to catch back up, which I don't think he is currently achieving. He's Michael Rhodes has been to the pit lane recently, which offsets his average, but just looking around the field, Heinrich isn't setting the timing border light. He's doing 2:19.
Looks like Rhodes came out and he set not just his fastest lap of the race, but the fastest lap of the race. So he's definitely going faster by quite a bit compared to Stefan right now.
Wow, that is quite the achievement, and I don't think Stefan will be gaining very much at all there, because he's just cleared himself a slowdown penalty, and that's cost him about 2 seconds in that fight. He is going to need a drive-through penalty for Michael Rhodes at this stage in order to reclaim the lead of the AM class, and it might be 4 for 4 for Michael Rhodes if he's able to keep those off tracks under control. And hopefully not have a collision with Sebastian Hajek here. Different classes, so surely they shouldn't want to fight each other too hard. And Felix Mexner in the pit lane. He's going to come out pretty comfortably, still in P3 in his class.
Yep. And it's... So he got about 3 laps left for Alex, 2 laps left for Stefan. And those are those drivers that pitted, you know, a little bit later on those wet tires. It looks like they're actually still going to have to make a stop for at least a small splash of fuel for that last, 8 to 10 minutes.
That is very interesting indeed. They will have a shorter pit stop, of course. But yeah, it's not going to save them from that little splash at the end. So we're looking at Michael Rhodes' yellow car in the front of your picture, and Sebastian Hajek in the background in the red liveried car. They are fighting for position on track, but they are not fighting for position in the standings. And I think Michael Rhodes has just pulled over to let him through there. Doesn't want any incident to compromise his current lead in the AM class. I'd say that's a pretty smart decision. And Sebastian now has a 7-second gap to Alexander Drake in front, who I think you were just mentioning, Zach, does need to make another pit stop.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. He's got 2 laps left. We've got 12 minutes in the race. I'm not great at math, but that doesn't add up to him finishing the race for me.
Absolutely. And I think even more disappointingly, I think Stefan Heinrich, will have to pit again as well. Hasn't worked out for any of those drivers who went a bit longer on the wet tyre at this stage. I think they were hoping that the pace would slow down a bit, but indeed we have 6 laps to go, and I don't think any of them, even with the best fuel saving in the world, are going to be able to make it. I think that Sebastian there is going to be right on the edge. He's been on these tyres for 10 laps. With 6 to go, he's going to want Joe Harrison to slow down a little bit so he doesn't push it to 52 laps. Otherwise, I think he might be quite disappointed. As once again, Costa has come out of the pit lane, 13 laps down on the field. He wants to pick up those points of finishing the race. And I say good on him for coming back out after 2 meatball flags in this race. I'm sure it hasn't been the most enjoyable experience. And that is Alex Drake, after 16 laps on those tyres, is into the pit lane. And he's going to drop back. I think he'll be safe from Samuel Garrett, so he's going to end up P5 in his class overall as it stands. And indeed, he's got a 60-second lead on Samuel there, so should be reasonably safe. But we continue down the Kemmel Straight here. Everyone has got a pretty nice gap, and Stefan Heinrich into the pit lane. So I think he can maybe take a bit of solace in the fact that he was never going to get to the end of the race anyway on those tyres, and probably would have conceded the lead to Michael Rhodes without that drive-through. I think a drive-through here is probably going to cost you about anywhere between 30-35 seconds. He could have been a hell of a lot closer without it, and now I think he's going to be severely hoping that Michael Rhodes ends up with some sort of penalty. Of course, there was a lot of chaos at the beginning of this race. Lots of drivers rejoining the track in interesting ways, lots of collisions. So I wouldn't bet on the result you see on your screen in 10 minutes' time to be the final result of this race. I would expect some sort of adjustments, some sort of time penalty for some of those rejoins, some of those collisions we saw at the very beginning. And that could have interesting implications on the championship as we continue. I saw lead steward Alex Pilbeam in here earlier on, saying how he didn't like the look of some of those rejoins, and I will be interested to see what the full steward panel thinks when they get to review all of the incidents during this race.
It's definitely going to be an interesting one for those guys to go back and rewatch.
Indeed, the track is almost unrecognizable to 2 hours ago. We were looking at a damp track, lots of spray, lots of spins, lots of off tracks, and now everyone seems to have kind of pulled down. Everyone feels a little bit under control, apart from maybe Felix Mexner there, who managed to get himself a slow down penalty, but doesn't look like anything more serious than that right now. And everyone's gaps have kind of opened out quite a bit. There's no one on this track, with the exception of JT Sawyer, who's chasing down James Vernon within 10 seconds of each other. This is kind of how I expected endurance races to play out. Apologies, I managed to go back on a collision there. But we haven't really seen this season. We've seen a lot of very close battles as it's continued. And we do have two cars close together on the racetrack. However, they are not fighting for position. It is Robin Wist right on the back of a lapped car there. It is the 293 of Stefan Heinrichs, who's just been into the pit lane. And makes it very easy for Robin here. Just moves out of the way, lets him through. No dramas whatsoever. And just seeing now, João Costa, black flag, he's already at the back of the pack. He's already had 2 meatballs. What is another flag waved at his car during this race? I think he will be going to bed tonight thinking that he would rather this race not have happened.
I think you might be a little right there.
I don't think it has been his favourite race during this particular championship, as we look at 7 minutes and 4 laps to go now, and it's looking like everyone might well be staying where they are as we approach the end of this race. That allows us to have a little bit of a reflect. Zach, how do you feel a lot of these drivers handled those damp conditions at the beginning of the race?
Yeah, I think most of our drivers are going to wish it gone a little better for them, but, you know, the way that this track starts and the technicality of that, like, opening section, along with having, cold tires, wet track, I think those drivers that took the dries are kicking themselves a little bit now.
Yeah, it looks a little bit on the edge at the beginning of this race, but I think that wet tires were certainly the right call. It was very different to Silverstone 2 weeks ago, where the dries were quite obviously the right call after we looked at the race, but at the time, maybe it seemed like switching to wet was a better call. I think some of them would have been wishing that there was rain during qualifying, because it would have given them a bit of time to kind of feel out the conditions, work out exactly what the right tyre is to be, where the crossover is. Of course, the beginning of practice today had similar-ish conditions to the start of the race. The track had quite a lot more puddles over it, so it was very obvious that it was wet. But it was just a little bit more dry, and I think it really threw a few drivers off, especially those who joined after the beginning of that practice, after the track was mostly dry. Really kind of upset everyone's expectations of what the track was going to be.
I think you're right, and especially with how this track is, with some tracks, if it rains a little bit in between qualifying and the race, it dries up pretty quick. But this is one of those tracks with how long it is and kind of how the temperatures vary across. It takes, we're 2 hours into this endurance race and there's still puddles on the track. So this one can be a hard one to predict when it comes to, the racing styles and how you actually handle the puddles that remain hours after the track has long since dried.
And of course, you end up, because it's such a long track, it's got its own kind of weather ecosystem that one side of the track can be a hell of a lot wetter than the other. Certain corners can have, lots of puddles on them. We can see it if you look in the first sector as the cars go through there. I think it's turn 7, still has a big puddle on the inside. You'll see the drivers kicking up the water. But no real other curbs are still left on this track with a puddle around them. It could have rained a bit more there, or just the characteristic of the way that puddle is kind of formed into the curb leaves a bit of water in there. And maybe one of the most well-known tracks for having that real difficulty in the rain. Of course, we saw the Grand Prix 2022, where no one got racing at all because it was so wet in this region and so unpredictable with how the rain was going to fall and what the track was looking like. But I think it might be a bit of an annoyance to some drivers who really didn't expect the conditions to be as wet as they were. They think a bit of a damp track, and they'll certainly be hoping as we head into the next round that it looks a bit drier.
Yeah, I think you're right there. It'll be interesting to see after today how those points shake out. I think for Michael Rhodes, as long as he can keep it out of the wall, it looks like he's gonna, finish with another win on the board.
Absolutely, and we'll have to bring you up to date at the beginning of next round. But I think with the drop round in there, I think it might possibly make Michael Rhodes' lead, very difficult to beat in that AM class. He's got the biggest lead of anyone in this series. It's 32 points for a win, 0 points for a DNF here. I know his gap was bigger than 32. So I think it's going to take him pretty much not finishing in the final 2 rounds, one of which he would drop anyway. I think it might actually be impossible for anyone to decrown Michael Rhodes in that AM class at this point. And
I think he might be right. So he's going to come into these last 2 races feeling, pretty comfortable, maybe still wanting to state his mark and prove that he can go the whole season undefeated.
Absolutely. And what the what that sets out for him in the future of DWREC or league racing in general, I think he could be pretty happy with the way this season's gone so far. I mean, he has solidly led a lot of this championship. Had a few incidents here and there, but this might be a very confidence boosting thing for him, especially if he goes up into that Pro-Am class in in future seasons. I mean, he's got a 40-second lead on Stefan Heinrichs, helped a little bit by that that drive-through penalty, but you know, so far we're gonna touch wood for his sake. He managed to keep it out of speeding in the pit lane or getting the instant points to get that drive-through. So that is still skillful on him. Disappointment out of today, I think, will be David Chilling. He's been super quick all season. He had a bit of an incident last time out at Silverstone where he lost the lead, but he absolutely had speed. But a DNF today, I think, is really gonna hurt him in the you know, maybe not in the championship because he'll have that drop round, but certainly in you know, in his feeling of how the season's gone for him.
Definitely. It's especially when you have 2 races in a row. You know, I think in the first race he had some connections problems with his PC that caused him to start from the pits. You know, and then with the incidents he had in this race, it can definitely be a blow to the confidence. So we'll see if he can come back in these next 2 weeks and, you know, put something together, give himself a little boost, and, you know, see if he can pick up that speed and pick up those points in the last 2 races.
Well, certainly someone who won't have lost any confidence today, Joe Harrison, has taken the win in that pro class. He's going to be followed home by Robin Wist and then Mikey Stewart in P3 to make up our podium. He has driven impeccably today through, you know, wet conditions, dry conditions, and, you know, he's celebrating now with a lovely burnout there.
Yeah, I think he proved himself. He came in, he had a clean race, you know, great strategy, and, you know, it's resulted in another podium for himself.
Another, well, a happy result there for Jeffrey Damon, I think. If I'm not mistaken, his first win in the Pro-Am class this season. Timo Gartner ends up on the podium of the Pro-Am class after getting T-boned in lap 1. Felix Mexner's going to come home P3 in that class, and I think be you know, all be pretty happy with their results today.
Yeah, I think anyone who was able to escape that, you know, the lap 1 incidents that happened, you got to be pretty proud of yourself regardless.
And with everyone just coming across the line now, I want to give a bit of a special shout out to João Costa, you can see on your screen. 13 laps down, he had 2 meatballs, 1 black flag, and still came out and finished the race. I think that's commendable, even if the result wasn't the best for him. I think he can be happy with still coming out at the end of this race. We watch Sebastian in the 699. He finishes P7 overall, P4 in his class. And then finally across the line, our final winner of today, he goes 4-4-4. It's going to be Michael Rhodes in that AM class, and he's going to celebrate it with a nice slide into the gravel. So before we head to our results today, let us have a look at the podium for all of our drivers. As we said, it is Joe Harrison who takes up P1 on the top step of the podium in the pro class today. He's going to be very happy with that result. It's Robin Wist finishing behind him in the 204 Mercedes, and Mikey Stewart who finishes up that pro class in P3. Looking at the Pro-Am now, Jeffrey Damon finally gets the result he was looking for. Top step of the podium for him in the Mercedes, followed by a strong contender in the championship this series in Timo Gartner, with Felix Mexner finishing on the podium just behind. And then finally, it's 4-4 for Michael Rhodes, dominance Mike Ball fans, and Stefan Heinrichs follows behind. He had a dominant lead at the beginning of this race, making a wonderful charge on the dry tyres in wet conditions, but wasn't able to bring it home and finishes P2. And then it's James Vernon who ends up in P number 3 in that AM class. Having a look now at the final standing of the race, it's going to be Joe Harrison, as we said, who takes up 32 points. Fastest lap of the pro class for Robin Wist takes 26, and Mikey Art Stewart on 22. In the Pro-Am class, it's Jeffrey Damon taking the 33 points. Timo Gartner, 25. Felix Mexner, followed by Sebastian Alexander Samuel, who takes the fastest lap of the class, 1 lap down, and João Costa. Finally, looking at the AM class, it's going to be Michael Rhodes taking the win, as we said, Stefan Heinrichs and James Vernon, and JT Sawyer picking up that extra point for fastest lap, and Garcia being the final car on the road on the way out. Carter, unfortunately, taking a DNF. So, if you're going to leave us now, we indulge you to please stick around for the interviews, but just a reminder for you, different from the rest of the championship, we're going to be back in the same place this time next week for round 4. There is not a 2-week gap as it stands. It is 1 week. We're going to be back on Sunday at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. 6 p.m. GMT, 7 p.m. If you are in Europe, please do join us for the Nürburgring. I'll get my words right eventually. For the Le Mans, another popular endurance race. I was close enough to the right one. Before the season finale at Sebring at the beginning of next year. Let us head back then to the track on screen and see who we can't talk to. We will start this evening by having a chat to our pro winner in Joe Harrison. Let us drag him in here and talk to Joe. How is your evening going, sir?
Yeah, good, thank you. How are you? How are you guys?
We're doing good. We had a very spicy race to watch out there. How was the start for you in those very tricky wet conditions?
Yeah, it was interesting. I don't know what Robin and David were doing on tires, but just stayed on the inside and went past both of them. So I don't know what was going on there, but the first few laps there was no grip at any point. I don't know what was going on really. So, but yeah, just managed to survive just about.
Let me get this right. You were on the wet tires to begin with.
Yeah.
Did that seem like we saw quite a few cars, a surprising number of cars, come out on dry tires? Was it an obvious choice to you go for the wets, or were you kind of deciding as you were gridding?
I was deciding as I was gridding, but you could see the rain in the forecast, and yeah, I thought I'd rather be in it by the end of the first lap rather than in the wall. So that's my thinking, really.
Indeed, we saw quite a few cars in the wall. A lot of them cutting Eau Rouge as we went through that first lap. Quite a few incidents as well. David exited out of that race after starting on dries, and it didn't go well for him. Do you feel like there's a championship challenge on there, or do you think it's maybe a little bit too late?
I don't think with David. I think in any other day, if it was dry, he was long gone. But yeah, it's nice to win a race. I enjoy. It's been fun to win one, so I'll take that. Absolutely.
Well, we'll see what the weather forecast holds, and see whether there's more wet running to come, and see what happens in the the championship to come. Sorry, I'm just watching you take a lovely spin through Eau Rouge at the same time. And,
I thought that was it, but let's keep going. Yeah, some more rain would be nice. Yeah, I'll take that.
Perfect stuff. Well, thank you for talking to us, Joe, and good luck for the rest of the championship, and hopefully see you on the grid next week.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for everyone for organising it as well, as ever.
Wonderful stuff. I shall talk in a bit. Now, let's move on to our Pro-Am class winner, who quite happily was just behind Joe in shot there, and bring in Jeffrey. And it finally turned out to be the result you were looking for. How was your race this evening?
Sweaty. That's how I describe it. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Started on the wets. Saw a few people on the dry, so I was like, "Is it the call? Is it the call?" Turned out to be right to start on the wets. Even on wets, I had no grip. I was trying to follow Felix, who drove amazingly in the wets. He was way quicker. I think he had a 7-second gap on me by the time we pitted. Little slide, but other than that, I kept it clean. Managed to make a gap on the first pit stop. After the first pit stop, I was very quick, and never changed tires afterwards. And I think at the end they were catching back to me, but I had such a gap that it was quite a After that, it was just managing pace basically.
Absolutely, it seemed to catch a few people out, whether it was the right conditions for wets or for dries. And we saw a few people cutting Eau Rouge on lap one, a few spins and kind of on bins into the wall as a result of them choosing their tires. You said there wasn't any grip on the wet tires even. Did it feel like maybe a bit greasy rather than wet? We were trying to kind of put together how everyone was struggling on whatever tire they were on.
Yeah, the first 2-3 laps for me, it felt like driving on oil or ice. I was sliding like crazy, even on wet tires. So ballsy for the ones that made the choice to go on the dries. I did some of the practice sessions we had, and it was quite similar there when it was wet. So that was also why I chose to start on the wet tire.
Very interesting, indeed. You said that you went for dry tires and didn't change them again for the rest of the race. Was that just to avoid the amount of time to heat them back up on a slightly cool track, or was there kind of another reason you went for that?
Yeah, that as well. At the first pit stop, I thought my tires were still very good. I was like, yeah, I will lose a lot of time changing them, and I have a nice gap now. And after that, the last pit stop I did was like 30 liters of fuel, so it would not really make sense to stay in the pit that long then. Last 10 minutes, I were absolutely dead, though. I was sliding.
Yeah, we saw a few people definitely getting towards the end of the race who were kind of sliding about, maybe getting a few incident points and coming off the road as well. But massive congratulations to you for taking your first win of the series. How do you feel about the two tracks we've got left in Le Mans and Sebring? Any particular favourites or dislikes of those tracks?
No, not at all. I love both tracks. Just the same with Spa, actually. I really enjoy this track. This has actually not been my quickest track. So the fact that I managed to actually pull out the win, looking forward to see what happens on Le Mans and Sebring, where I think myself I am actually better than at Spa.
Well, wonderful stuff. We look forward to that. Congratulations again, and thank you very much for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a nice evening.
Bye. And then let's talk. Oh, I can't drag in properly. There we go. Let's talk for maybe we've spoken to him a little bit too much this evening, but we're going to have Michael Rhodes join us. How was your race this evening, sir? It looked very tricky out there.
Well, I did try to not be on this commentary again because I didn't want to torture you, to be fairly honest. No, it was crazy. It was a mad race. The choice of what side to start on the start was crazy. I went with the wets, which I think was the right decision maybe for like the first few laps.
We've heard from everyone who has won in their class this evening that they started on wets, so there must have been some good thought in there somewhere. Did you have a debate as you were going to the grid whether it was time for dries?
Soon as I seen it change to very light wet, I thought, "Uh-oh, have I made the wrong decision?" And then after Eau Rouge and Raidillon, I went, "I haven't made the wrong decision." There's a lot of carnage in the first few corners.
We saw you getting involved in what looked like almost an airplane crash. Rouge on lap one. Looked very scary indeed. There were lots of cars cutting the track and rejoining.
Yeah.
Got any worries about any potential stewards' action for yourself or other cars maybe that were going through there? Because it looked like there were quite a few cars, not just at Eau Rouge, rejoining the track at various different places and thrills and spills that maybe we didn't catch all of them.
I don't know. I'll have to look at it back. I haven't actually properly looked at it. I think it was JT that was coming at like full speed, cutting the corner up behind us again, because obviously the conditions were tricky. But I didn't, like I said, I've got to look back at. I didn't think I touched anyone, if I remember rightly. I'm pretty sure I only just got the 1X. So yeah, I think I'm safe, but I'll have to have a look at it.
Indeed, and quite the comeback. It was it was quite the lead that you had to make back up, because the dry tyres starter, they kind of made their way forward quite well after those first couple of laps. Did you have a feeling that maybe you'd made the wrong decision, as there was for the first time in this series, an AM class driver leading the way?
A little bit. I'm not going to lie. I think Stefan, credit to him, he had a fantastic race. So I think he did all that. It was going to be tight near the end. I think he made a mistake. I think he went off at 17 on lap 27, which I think caused him to pit early, which meant he had to do an extra stop. I know he obviously had the drive-through. So I think, obviously, maybe without the drive-through, it would have been close. With the drive-through, it would have been close at the end between us both, because I think it was 40 seconds. I finished ahead of him. So it definitely would have been tight between us near the end, I think. But I think if he didn't get the drive-through, I think he would have clearly deserved the win, to be fair, because he was fantastic on the in the dry tyres at that start.
Interesting stuff. Well, I think that with 4 for 4 wins and a drop round in the season, it may be impossible. I need to confirm exactly for anyone to catch you in your championship league. Of course, pending any stewards' decisions, you're still going to give it your all for the final 2 rounds of the season?
No, I'm going to take everyone out in the last 2 races just to cause some, drop points and stuff like that, just to make it interesting. No, I'm going to be there. I'm going to have fun and just do my race. I'll go 5 for 5 if I can. It's going to be hard. I think it's a Le Mans next, so that's going to be tricky at the Porsche. And then Sebring's always fun. So I'll try to go for a full sweep. I don't expect it, but we'll see what happens.
Well, the only driver who has the capacity to go for winning all races in their class this season. So we will keep an eye on Michael Rhodes as we head into the next 2 rounds. Thank you very much for joining us, Mike. And
thank you, guys.
For maybe the second time I've said it, I hope we're talking to someone else next week.
Yeah, I hope so too.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, that is unfortunately all the time we have to speak to our drivers this evening. We spoke to the top 3 drivers, or each winner of our class. Zach, before we head off this evening, got anything else that you kind of want to reflect on from this race?
I think it was very exciting. The tire choices were something to be seen. I think the fuel strategies kind of really became apparent in this race, and I think we're looking forward to quite an exciting closing 2 races. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And a reminder of that is that coming up next, we have the 24-hour of Le Mans layout at Le Mans. That's going to be next weekend. Do not miss it. Do not think that there's going to be a 2-week gap. It will be here live next Sunday at 6 p.m. GMT. And then join us for the final round of the season at Sebring on the 4th of January at 6 p.m. to ring in the new year. Hopefully all of our drivers will have slept off their hangovers by then. But that just leaves me to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you to all our drivers, and thank you to Zach for joining me in the commentary box. We shall catch you in a week's time right here at 6 p.m.